Father had 6 daughters, and I was the fifth. My mother was only a palace maid working in the small kitchen of the Hall of Mental Cultivation. In her entire life she received the emperor's favor only once. That one night was how I came to be. She treasured me more than anything in the world. When I was 7, noble consort Lan falsely accused her of infidelity, and she died unjustly. A few months later, after exhausting every scheme I could devise, I became noble consort Lan's foster daughter. Do you think I was an unfilial daughter who forgot the vengeance I owed my murdered mother for the sake of wealth and status, then turned around and accepted that vicious consort as my own mother? That was how I stepped onto the path of revenge. My mother had originally been a palace maid working in the small kitchen of the Hall of Mental Cultivation. That year, noble consort Lan was at the height of imperial favor, but she had quarreled with father. Father drank heavily and was in an extremely foul mood. None of the eunuchs or palace maids serving nearby dared approach him while he was angry, so they pushed my gentle, timid mother forward to take the brunt of it. Father ended up taking her to his bed. Every woman in the inner palace belonged to the emperor. If he desired you, it was called imperial favor. You had no right to refuse. My mother was the one to be pitied. She had been only half a month away from reaching the age when she could leave the palace. But from that night on, she spent the rest of her life imprisoned behind the deep palace walls. She could never marry the cousin and childhood sweetheart, who had waited for her for so many years. Noble consort Lan always knew when to stop sulking. The very next day, she forgave father. The two of them resumed their loving intimacy as though nothing had happened. That was why my mother received the emperor's favor only once in her entire life. Yet that one night was how I came to be. I was only 3 days older than the 6th princess Chu Yao, noble consort Lan's daughter. She had lived in luxury from childhood, surrounded by hundreds of servants. At great banquets, father would even hold her on his lap and gently coax her to eat a few more bites. My mother, by contrast, was only a low-ranking attendant. The imperial household department often skimmed her allowance, so she had to do embroidery herself to earn a little extra money. I was frail and undersized from childhood, and I excelled at none of the 4 accomplishments of music, chess, calligraphy, or painting. Father had never truly looked directly at me, his own daughter even once. The palace servants were even less inclined to regard mother and me as real masters. Yet on every freezing winter night, mother held me in her arms. Her embrace was soft and fragrant. She sang gentle Jiangnan melodies and quietly lulled me to sleep. More times than I could count, she whispered into my ear, "Jaja is the treasure in mother's heart. Mother loves Jaja." Sometimes, when I was half awake and half asleep, I could even feel her planting little kisses on my cheeks. Back then I thought it did not matter if father never noticed me. The world was vast. As long as I had all of mother's love, I was already unimaginably fortunate. But when I was 7, heavy snow fell over the capital day after day. The imperial household department cut our charcoal allotment, and Ningshui Palace became as cold as an ice cellar. Mother fell ill. Her fever would not break, and she slipped into unconsciousness. The imperial physician, whom we had begged with enormous difficulty, said that if mother was to wake, a 1,000-year-old ginseng root had to be used as the medicinal catalyst. But mother was only a low-ranking attendant. She was not entitled to use something so precious. The empress had been dead for many years, and noble consort Lan now controlled the inner palace. I knelt in the snow for 4 hours before she finally allowed me into the inner hall. Red coals blazed in the brazier, warming the entire room, yet I could not stop shivering. Noble consort Lan reclined lazily on a cushioned couch. In one hand she held a bunch of crystal grapes presented as tribute from a foreign land, feeding them one at a time to the cat in her lap. She frowned faintly. "The palace has its rules. If I make an exception for you today, will some low-ranking concubine come tomorrow asking me for snow lotus, and then some palace maid beg me for snow frog tonic? If that continues, what order will remain in the inner palace?" After a pause, she added coldly, "From the night your mother climbed into His Majesty's dragon bed, she deserved to die. She was fortunate enough to survive until now and even raise you. You must not be too greedy." After leaving Yikun Palace, I collapsed into the deep snow. The helplessness hurt all the way into my bones, like a rope tightening around my throat until I could barely breathe. Xiaolu ran over sobbing and helped me up. "Your Highness, perhaps we should let it go. Maybe this is simply her ladyship's fate." An unfavored woman in the deep palace was like a blade of grass in winter. One night of freezing rain or one heavy snowfall was enough to make her silently disappear from the world. But she was my mother, the only person in the world who truly loved me. I could not give up. I went to beg my eldest imperial brother, Chu Song. He was 8 years older than I was, and had been born to the late empress. By then, he had already begun participating in state affairs and was highly valued by father. His servants did not make things difficult for me, and before long I was led into his hall. My eldest brother personally poured me a cup of hot tea and ordered someone to bring me a cloak and a hand warmer. But the moment I mentioned saving mother, his expression became troubled. The inner palace is managed by noble consort Lan. As an imperial prince, I should not overstep her authority. I kept pleading. He sighed. Your mother is still one of father's consorts. In the end, father must be the one to intervene. Father is receiving court officials in the Hall of Diligent Government right now. Why not go and beg him yourself? I murmured that the guards were too strict, and I could not enter the outer court. He smiled. I can help you. I changed into the clothes of a palace maid. My eldest brother's people led Xiaoliu and me through layer after layer of guards until we finally reached the outside of the Hall of Diligent Government. Even the heavy wooden doors could not block the voices inside. A minister was remonstrating loudly. Has your majesty forgotten? Before the late empress died, you personally promised that you would never establish another empress in this lifetime. Xiaoliu suddenly trembled and tugged lightly at my sleeve. Your Highness, don't. Please don't. So that was it. My eldest brother wanted to use me as a blade. But at that moment, saving mother mattered more than anything else. Besides, if noble consort Lan truly became empress, mother and I would only suffer more. I dropped heavily to my knees and shouted, Father, Father, please save my mother. At such a crucial moment in the debate over appointing a new empress, news that a palace consort had been harshly mistreated made father lose face completely. In front of the assembled officials, he loudly rebuked noble consort Lan. Seeing her hopes of becoming empress about to collapse, how could she accept it? She removed all her hairpins and ornaments, her tear-streaked face delicate as rain-soaked pear blossoms as she choked out an explanation. It was not that I deliberately mistreated Attendant Lin. The truth is that she was unfaithful to your majesty. I thought that she had, after all, given birth to the 5th princess for your majesty. I was also afraid of damaging the imperial family's dignity, so I intended to leave her to fend for herself, whether she lived or died. Dozens of eunuchs rushed into Ningshui Palace and turned it upside down. Mother, gravely ill in bed, was roughly dragged onto the floor. Then, inside her jewelry box, they found a sheet of paper covered in words of love. How ridiculous. Mother could barely read. Yet on the strength of that single sheet of paper, she was branded unfaithful. Noble consort Lan needed only a few words before father. My mother's entire family far away in Jingnan, people I had never even met who made their living selling pastries, was implicated as well. Not one escaped. When mother heard the news, she immediately coughed up a mouthful of blood. The lamp of her life, already burning weakly, finally ran out of oil. With great difficulty, she raised a hand and wiped away the tears that would not stop spilling from my eyes. I'm sorry, my child. Mother is leaving Jair alone in this world. In our next life, let us be an ordinary mother and daughter. Mother will stay beside you while you grow up, watch you marry, and watch your children and grandchildren fill the house. You must live well. Don't think about revenge. Then she was gone, carrying a filthy reputation she did not deserve. Her body was wrapped carelessly in a torn reed mat and thrown into some mass grave. The next day, Chu Song came to visit me while I was sick. He stroked my head and said, I did not handle this properly, I am sorry. Fortunately, your eyes and brows resemble father's very closely. Otherwise, what happened to your birth mother might have implicated you as well. My whole body went rigid. Mother was innocent. My eldest brother sighed. Jier, there are many innocent people in this inner palace and in this world. Focus on recovering. I will have your birth mother buried properly. Every year at the tomb sweeping festival, I will also send someone to burn more paper offerings for her. Cheer up. The road ahead is still long. He brought me many fine things, including more than 100 caddies of high-grade silver thread charcoal and 1,000-year-old ginseng root. I truly did resemble father, but rumors in the palace never stopped. Servants whispered in groups whenever they saw me. Some even said to my face that no one knew which man my mother had secretly slept with to produce a bastard like me. What I remembered most clearly about that winter was the cold that seeped into my bones. No matter how fiercely the silver thread charcoal burned in the brazier, it could no longer warm my heart. Perhaps when a person was born lowly, her life was also worth less than other people's. Xiaoliu found every kind of delicacy she could and stuffed food into me every day. By mother's 4th 7-day memorial, 28 days after her death, I had recovered more than halfway. Burning paper offerings was forbidden inside the palace, so I made a small bell myself and wrote mother's name and date of birth on it. According to a Jiangnan custom, If the bell was hung high enough on that 28th day memorial, it could call the departed soul back to send a dream. There was an ancient tree in the imperial garden said to be 1,000 years old. I intended to hang the bell there, but on the way I ran into Chu Yao, surrounded by a crowd of attendants clearing the road before and behind her. She stuck her head out of her soft sedan chair and looked at me with contempt. Your birth mother did something so filthy. If I were you, I would be too ashamed to show my face. Turn your face away. Don't let me see you. The sight of you disgusts me. I straightened my back. Sixth Imperial Sister, I am also Father's princess. You should call me. Before I could finish, she stepped out of the sedan chair and kicked me hard behind the knee. My legs gave way and I fell into the snow. She raised her chin, practically looking at me through her nostrils, a smug, contemptuous smile curling her lips. You don't truly think every princess is equal, do you? Move. Her attendant surged forward at once and forced Xiaoliu and me against the wall. My face was ground against the rough surface, tearing open a long cut. Blood trickled down. Princesses could indeed be worlds apart. In the deep palace, being unfavored was itself an original sin. Xiaoliu desperately held me back and begged me to wait before going to the imperial garden. We waited another hour before setting out. Unexpectedly, the moment we arrived, we heard chaos ahead. Chu Yao had been playing recklessly and run onto the middle of the frozen lake. Her servants chased after her in panic. The ice cracked, and she was about to fall into the water. She screamed and sobbed while the servants tried frantically to save her, but the more they approached, the farther the cracks spread. I stood behind a tree and watched coldly. Xiaoliu clenched her teeth. Heaven has eyes. Noble consort Lan framed Our Lady, and now retribution has fallen on her daughter. It would be best if she drowned. I removed my cloak and stepped forward. I have to save her. Your Highness, have you gone mad? Did you forget what she just did? She has so many servants. Chu Yao will not die. At worst, she will suffer a little. But I needed an opportunity. An opportunity to get close to noble consort Lan and an opportunity to enter father's sight. Chu Yao was rescued by me without a scratch. I, however, fell into the icy lake and developed an unrelenting high fever afterward. In my delirium, I saw Mother. Her eyes were full of pity and worry. Jair, why didn't you listen to Mother? Why couldn't you obediently live a peaceful life? I choked so badly that I could hardly speak. Mother, it is too difficult to survive in this man-eating palace. I need something to believe in. Making those who took your life pay the price is what keeps me alive. Mother's figure gradually faded. Noble consort Lan and father came to visit me. She pretended to be a loving elder and gently tucked the corner of my quilt around me. I kept my eyes closed, then suddenly seized her hand and sobbed again and again. Don't go. Don't leave Jair alone. Noble consort Lan quietly tried to pull her hand free, but I held on too tightly. Only after several attempts did I slowly open my eyes. When I seemed to recognize that the person before me was her, I immediately released her hand, my face filled with grief. Jair mistook you for someone else. Then I looked at father, and large tears rolled down one after another. Father, do you hate Jair? Jair no longer has a mother. Jair doesn't want to lose father too. I covered my face as I cried. Father, look carefully. Jair looks so much like you. Jair is not a bastard. Jair isn't. Weakly, I reached out and took his hand. Jair will treat all my younger imperial brothers and sisters well. Jair can still be useful. Father, please don't hate Jair. Please don't kill Jair. Father's expression changed slightly. For the first time in my life, he reached out of his own accord and pulled me into his arms. Good girl. You are father's daughter, the 5th princess of Great Chu. Whoever dares say otherwise, father will cut out that person's tongue. My tears still would not stop. But Jair truly is a child without a mother now. Father patted my back gently. How could you have no mother? From now on, noble consort Lan will be your mother consort. Chu Yao and I had been born only 3 days apart, and I had risked my life to save her. Noble consort Lan could find no suitable reason to refuse to raise me. Besides, now that I had finally entered father's notice, she had to make a show of doing everything properly. From then on, I was never excluded when beautiful clothes or expensive food were distributed. Noble consort Lan even had me study music, chess, calligraphy, and painting alongside Chu Yao. Chu Yao often mocked me. A cheap bastard born of a cheap woman really is only worth this much. You're exactly like your dead birth mother. I advise you to know your place. Don't do anything embarrassing and drag mother and me down with you. Outwardly, my life seemed glorious beyond measure. No one knew how much suffering lay beneath it. Noble consort Lan had countless vicious ways to torment people. The clothes made for me, for example, were sewn from the finest fabrics, but they had first been soaked in the sap of fishtail palms, which made the skin itch unbearably on contact. She deliberately made me wear those clothes on important occasions such as the mid-autumn banquet. My entire body would itch down to the bone, yet I could neither undress nor raise a hand to scratch. By the time a banquet ended, I would be drenched in sweat. Or she would order me to copy Buddhist scriptures to pray for the late empress. The number of volumes was perfectly ordinary, but the shafts of my writing brushes were cast from bronze and weighed many times more than normal brushes. By the time I finished copying several volumes, my wrist felt as though it would snap, and that was not all. If I caught a chill, the servants would secretly add ingredients considered cooling to my food. If I suffered from summer heat, they would prepare only foods considered strongly heating. Xiao Liu often wiped away tears in secret. How can she torment your highness like this? When will days like these ever end? I asked her. Xiao Liu, do you think a 3-year-old child can cut down a tree so large that 5 grown men could barely encircle it? She stared at me. How could that be possible? It can be done. I smiled faintly. The child will grow. As long as she cuts at it little by little, year after year, never stopping and never giving up, even the largest tree will one day fall. Before I am strong enough, before the right opportunity truly arrives, I must endure. Although noble consort Lan hired famous teachers for me, I obediently remained mediocre. I never distinguished myself in music, chess, calligraphy, or painting. In front of father, I was always timid and restrained, nothing like Chu Yao's lively, dignified manner. 1 year passed, then 2, then 3. Gradually, noble consort Lan discovered that I did have a use. I made Chu Yao look better. My mediocrity and perfectly highlighted Chu Yao's intelligence, openness, and noble bearing. Whenever Chu Yao made a mistake, I could also be pushed forward to take the blame. I was supposedly so meek that no matter how much blame or slander was piled onto me, I would not dare make a sound. Chu Yao gradually saw the benefit of keeping me beside her as well. I might not excel in the 4 accomplishments, but I was good at embroidery, and knew how to make many kinds of jiangnan pastries. Whenever it was noble consort Lan's birthday, father's birthday, or an important festival such as Mid-Autumn or New Year's Eve, I prepared gifts with my own hands. Chu Yao would snatch them and announce that she had stayed up all night making them herself. She would even belittle me as though it were self-evident. Mother and father praise these things not because what you made tastes good or looks beautiful, but because I am the one giving it. If you presented it yourself, they probably would not even bother to look. So you should be grateful to me. Thanks to me, your effort isn't wasted. Xiao Liu ground her teeth in anger. In truth, there was no need to be that furious. What Chu Yao said was not entirely wrong. If there was one warm streak of color in those years of living, as though I were walking on a blade, it was Xu Yan. He was the study companion of my 5th imperial brother, and came from the Xu family of Nan Commandery. His great-grandfather had once risen to the office of chancellor. Unfortunately, by his father's generation, the family had gradually declined. Still, Xu Yan was exceptionally talented in literature and also skilled at riding and archery. He did not disgrace his ancestors' reputation. Everyone outside believed that I was a princess personally raised by noble consort Lan, noble in status and surrounded by luxury. Only Xu Yan had once brought me jiangnan pastries from outside the palace and said softly, "My mother also died when I was very young. I was raised for many years by my stepmother afterward. My stepmother is famously virtuous. But..." He stopped and chose his words for a long time before asking quietly, "Your Highness, these years have been very difficult for you, haven't they?" He had many clumsy ways of trying to please me. If he found something novel outside the palace and wanted to give it to me, giving only one to me would attract too much attention. So he would have his servants buy many. Every prince and princess received one, but he always found a way to deliver mine personally. Each time, his face would turn bright red. "I happened to see it and bought it on a whim. It isn't worth much. I hope your highness won't dislike it." Whenever I suffered an injustice that I could not defend myself against, Xiao Liu would comfort me. "Your highness, endure a little longer. Once you marry young Master Shu, everything will be better." Would it truly be better? It was so difficult to be a woman in this world. Even a princess seemed to have to hope for marriage to a good man before she could exchange her present life for a new one. Xu Yan was very good to me, but I still wanted to hold my own fate firmly in my hands. The opportunity came before long. One day, Chu Yao made a catastrophic mistake. During class, our tutor asked, "A great enemy army is approaching the border city, and the people are panicking. If you happen to be inside that city, what should you do?" Without hesitation, Chu Yao answered, "Naturally, I would leave as quickly as possible. A wise person does not stand beneath a wall about to collapse. I am a princess of priceless blood. Am I supposed to live and die together with a crowd of commoners? The tutor nearly blacked out with rage. He struck her palms 10 times with the ruler and sternly rebuked her, saying she was unworthy of the people's support, and even more unworthy of being a princess. Chuyao had never suffered such humiliation in her life. She immediately ordered eunuchs to disguise themselves, cover the tutor's head, and beat him severely. Those eunuchs were accustomed to acting arrogantly and did not clean up their work properly, leaving many traces behind. The tutor was elderly and already suffered from an old illness. That beating killed him outright. With the last of his strength, he wrote a memorial begging Father, for the sake of all the common people in the realm, never to continue indulging Cao Yao. A teacher for a day deserves the respect of a father for life. More than that, this tutor had once been the man who first taught Father himself. He had already retired to his hometown. Father personally wrote 3 letters before persuading him to return. Because of his age and failing strength, he no longer had the energy to teach the imperial princes, so he had agreed instead to teach us princesses. Killing one's teacher was little different from killing one's father. It was a grave crime. The tutor's former students were spread throughout the imperial court, and Chu Song quietly fanned the flames from behind the scenes. The incident shocked the entire court and caused an enormous uproar among the people. Memorials impeaching Chu Yao poured into the palace like snow. Everyone demanded severe punishment. Noble consort Lan and Chu Yao cried endlessly and proclaimed their innocence again and again. But Father was in a towering rage and did not believe them at all. He kicked Chu Yao hard. Wretched creature. How did I give birth to a wretched creature like you? Noble consort Lan immediately threw herself forward. Your Majesty, every fault is mine for failing to teach my daughter. If your Majesty insists that a life must pay for a life, then take mine. Father was so furious that his vision blurred. He flung her aside, turned, and entered the hall, leaving mother and daughter kneeling under the blazing sun outside the Hall of Mental Cultivation. Xiaolu and I stood in a shadowed corner watching. She could barely contain her delight. She bullies your highness every day. This time His Majesty surely will not let her off so easily. I had no idea when Chu Song had appeared beside us, he said blandly. Father has favored noble consort Lan alone for many years. It will not be so easy to condemn them. The smile vanished from Xiaolu's face. Chu Song glanced at me. Father has begun to feel disappointed in them. But that small amount of disappointment is still not enough for him to take Chu Yao's life. She is the daughter he has spoiled since childhood. His finger pressed lightly against a protruding stone on the artificial hill. With a click, the stone fell and rolled several times across the ground. Chu Song smiled coldly. 5th Imperial Sister, would you like to help me push down one more stone? I drew a deep breath and turned to Xiaoliu. Help me remove all my hairpins and ornaments. Xiaoliu panicked at once. She pulled me aside and lowered her voice. Your Highness, what are you planning? You cannot possibly intend to take the blame for her again. Taking the blame for smaller things in the past was one matter, but this time a life has been lost. One wrong step and you could lose your head. The first prince is not a good man. He is using you. Of course I know. But if a child wants to cut down a great tree, she needs a sharp tool. Right now Chu Song and I have the same target. If we are merely using each other, why should I refuse? An hour later I asked a eunuch to carry into the hall a plate of crystal hibiscus cakes I had made myself. They were also Father's favorite pastries. Then I knelt beside noble consort Lan and said loudly, Father, I did everything. Please do not punish Mother Consort Lan or 6th Imperial Sister. We were immediately summoned into the inner hall. I spoke one word at a time. I saw the tutor making things difficult for 6th Imperial Sister and could not swallow my anger, so I ordered eunuchs to beat him. At first I only wanted to teach him a lesson. I never intended to take his life. Every fault is mine. Please do not implicate innocent people. Father sat high on the dragon throne, his expression dark and unreadable. You truly did it? My voice trembled. Yes, it was I. I ordered the servants to intercept the tutor when he left the palace to return to his residence. Noble consort Lan immediately raised her head and looked quickly at me. Father's brow moved slightly, but he remained seated above us in grim silence. In any case, I had confessed. Joy flashed in Chu Yao's eyes, and almost immediately she burst into tears. Father, now you know Jiaoer was wrong, don't you? Noble consort Lan also knelt, putting on an earnest expression of self-reproach. In any case, I failed to teach the children strictly enough. All these years, I have never managed to correct the temperament Jiaoer inherited from her birth mother. I am willing to accept punishment. I struck my forehead hard against the floor, my voice desolate. Jiaoer knows her sins are deep. This time, I fear I can only repay them with my life. Father has raised Jier for so many years, yet Jier has never repaid you. I am truly unfilial. Father is burdened with affairs of state, but your health matters above all else. Please take good care of yourself. I knew that Father's eyes often hurt. If there is another life, Jier's is willing to become an ever-burning lamp beside Father's desk. I ask only that Father's whole life be filled with clear light and free of sorrow. Father's expression grew even more unfathomable. Appearing weak and pitiful while displaying absolute sincerity, those were all tricks I had learned from noble consort Lan and her daughter over the years. Noble consort Lan frowned. You have caused His Majesty such a disaster, and you still wish for a bond with him in the next life? I must blame myself as well. You and Jiaoer were clearly taught by the same tutor. Why has your temperament still never improved? Father descended from the high steps and walked toward noble consort Lan. Perhaps she thought he meant to help her to her feet, because she immediately reached out with a weak and pitiful expression. The next instant, Father suddenly raised his hand. Crack! His slap struck noble consort Lan's face so hard that she staggered. She froze completely. Father closed his eyes in exhaustion. You failed to teach your daughter, you deserve that slap. Then he issued an edict. Noble consort Lan had failed to discipline her daughter, and thereby caused a great calamity. She was demoted from noble consort to consort. The sixth princess had shown disgraceful words and conduct. Her honorific title, Princess Mingzhu, was stripped away, her fief withdrawn, and she was confined for half a year. Without a summons, she was forbidden to step outside. 2 edicts came one after another. Then Father looked at me. His throat bobbed before he pronounced each word with heavy emphasis. The 5th Princess Chu Wei has confessed to a grave crime. She is to receive 40 strokes of the heavy rod and be confined for 3 months. The tutor's family is to attend and witness the punishment. In truth, the tutor had not been attacked on the road after leaving the palace. He had been ambushed after departing from his own residence by carriage and preparing to leave the city. I had deliberately stated the wrong place. I had deliberately left a flaw in my confession. I was openly reminding Father that I was not the real culprit, so he would inevitably conclude that Consort Lan had pushed me forward to take the blame. But just as on countless occasions before, Father still could not bring himself to punish Chu Yao severely. In the end, I remained the one who bore the punishment. I was not disappointed. Father had been one of the executioners who killed Mother in the first place. I had never expected his love. What mattered was that his love for Consort Lan now carried a clear fracture. The tutor's family came to witness the punishment, and the eunuchs carrying it out did not hold back. By the 10th stroke, I was already badly injured. Xiaolu ignored every attempt to stop her and rushed into the punishment yard. She clutched my hand and cried until her voice was hoarse. Madame Lu looked at me with a complicated expression before finally turning her face away. After all 40 strokes, more than half my life seemed gone. I could only bite the tip of my tongue and force myself to preserve the last shred of consciousness. When the punishment ended, I dragged my battered body toward Madame Lu. With the last of my strength, I slowly knelt before her. Tutor Liu was a good teacher. Madame Liu, I, Chu Wei, apologize to you here. The moment I finished speaking, darkness swallowed my vision, and I lost consciousness completely. When I woke again, 5 days had passed. Xiaolu's eyes were swollen red like peaches. She laughed and cried at once. Your Highness, you finally woke up. His Majesty came to see you and bestowed many precious things. He also ordered the imperial physicians to use the finest medicines for your treatment. If the Imperial Medical Academy does not have them, they are to take them from His Majesty's private stores. Then she muttered, I truly cannot understand what His Majesty is thinking. What is there not to understand? Father could not bear to take Chu Yao's life, but public anger was raging outside the palace, and he had to give the realm an explanation. After weighing the advantages and disadvantages, I became the one pushed forward. But I am still his flesh and blood. He made me suffer such a great injustice and nearly cost me half my life, so he cannot avoid feeling guilty. These things are his compensation. Xiaolu kept chattering. The 1st prince secretly sent a great deal of medicine as well. And the 5th prince came to see you in secret. His eyes were completely red. I interrupted her. Has Father visited Consort Lan during these days? Xiaolu immediately brightened. Not once. I have been watching closely. Consort Lan requested an audience twice. She even deliberately stood on the road His Majesty must take after court and sang there, but His Majesty ignored her both times. I heard she was furious inside Yikun Palace. The meals carried in were almost untouched when they came back out. She had enjoyed exclusive imperial favor for so many years. Going 5 consecutive days without seeing father was probably the first time she had realized that the emperor's heart, which she had thought safely held in her palm, could one day slip beyond her control. Xiaolu was full of hope. Your Highness, does that mean Consort Lan will lose His Majesty's favor completely from now on? I shook my head. Consort Lan was the woman father had originally wanted to make his wife. He was forced to marry the late empress because he was competing for the throne, forcing his childhood sweetheart, Consort Lan, to accept the humiliating position of a concubine instead. She is his white moonlight, his true love, and he still feels guilty over what happened years ago. If I want to bring her down completely, I must make her commit a crime father could never forgive under any circumstances. Usually the best accusation would be treason. But she had no son, only the 6th princess and the 6th princess. If I tried to frame her natal family for rebellion, not only father but even the court ministers would refuse to believe it. Xiaoliu immediately wilted. Then doesn't that mean we can never defeat her in this lifetime? I looked at the branches outside the window, withered by the summer heat, and said calmly, there will be a way. I want her dead. Dead without the slightest dignity. Dead amid the curses and contempt of countless people. Not merely dead by father's hand, but completely dead within his heart as well, I said quietly. Send word to my eldest brother in secret. Tell him the time is almost right. The weather is hot. Go to the small kitchen and make some mung bean cakes. Make sure you create plenty of commotion while doing it. Xiaoliu did not understand what I intended, but she obediently followed my instructions. The cakes had barely been finished before Chuyao arrived, just as expected. To display her own supposed virtue, Consort Lan had arranged for the two of us to live in Fangfei Palace together. Chuyao occupied the spacious, bright, comfortable west wing. My east wing had originally been nothing more than a converted storage room. Although father had confined us, we were still free to move within Fangfei Palace. Chuyao marched straight to my bed and yanked away the thin blanket covering me. The sharp tip of her protective nail guard pressed cruelly into my injured thigh and reopened the wound. I sucked in a sharp breath from the pain. She pressed it harder, against the injury. Then smiled, at least you know your place, and took all the blame yourself. If those 40 strokes had landed on me, I would probably have died long ago. You're different. Just like your birth mother, your life is cheap but stubborn. Take good care of yourself. Otherwise, when I cause trouble again, who will step forward and take the blame for me? Xiaoliu lowered her head. Her hands clenched so tightly around the food tray that her knuckles whitened. Chuyao glanced over. Those cakes look decent. Mother has been in a poor mood lately and has hardly been eating. Take them over as an offering to her. She waved a hand, and the palace maid behind her stepped forward to snatch the tray from Xiaoliu. Xiaoliu refused to let go. I said softly, release it. Chuyao casually pinched one cake from the plate and shoved it forcefully into my mouth, laughing brightly. To make sure you didn't poison them, you eat one first. She watched me swallow it with her own eyes before swaggering away. The cakes, of course, were not poisoned. Xiaolu's eyes went wide. We should have put some of the poison known as crane's crown red in them and poisoned that pair of venomous snakes to death. I instructed her, pay attention and see whether Consort Lan eats those cakes. That evening, Xiaoliu returned with the news. Her daughter is confined, yet still remembered to prepare food for her mother. Consort Lan was deeply moved. She ate quite a few of the cakes. I said, starting tomorrow, make a different kind each day and send her some pastries and snacks. Xiaoliu immediately leaned close, lowering her voice with excitement. Are we poisoning her? I have some crane's stored away. I grabbed her at once. Do not act recklessly, I have my own plan. At dusk, the imperial kitchen delivered dinner according to routine. The eunuch carrying it moved awkwardly. Only after setting out the dishes did he lift his head and smile faintly at me. I recognized him at once. Your Highness. It was Xu Yan. Xiaoliu was quick-witted and immediately went to the door to keep watch. Xu Yan's eyes seemed veiled in mist, and his voice caught in his throat. Your Highness has suffered, I know you were wronged. I worried by day and could not sleep at night, so I rashly found a way to come see you. Xu Yan took a handkerchief from his sleeve. I brought your Highness your favorite pastries. When he unfolded the cloth, the cakes inside had been crushed out of shape. Xu Yan's expression immediately dimmed. I am truly useless. I cannot even do such a small thing properly. I accepted a cake and took a bite. Its shape had changed, but the taste had not. You went the trouble. Perhaps those words gave him courage. Xu Yan's face turned scarlet. He took a jade pendant from inside his robe and held it out to me. "This is the keepsake my mother left me. Your Highness, I will study diligently and strive to pass the examination next year. At that time, if your Highness does not disdain me, I will beg His Majesty to grant us a marriage and ask for your Highness's hand." When I said nothing, he gathered all his courage and gently placed the jade pendant in my palm. His voice dropped. "Your Highness, I know how much you have suffered. Please endure a little longer. I will never disappoint you." Father had only just issued an edict punishing me, and I was still under confinement. For Suyan to sneak in to see me at such a time and confess his feelings was, in truth, to gamble with his own head. After mother died, no one had ever treated me with such sincerity and such care. I did not return the pendant. I only urged him to leave quickly so that no one would discover him and bring disaster upon him. Suyan reminded me again and again to recover properly and to keep a low profile during these days. Only then did he leave reluctantly. Xiaolu's eyes reddened with happiness. "Your Highness, young Master Shu truly values affection and loyalty. Once you marry him, everything will be better." I believed in his sincerity at that moment, but if I wanted lasting happiness, I still had to eliminate every danger behind me. Father seemed genuinely determined to coldly distance himself from consort land for a time. For half a month he never once set foot in Yikun Palace. Meanwhile, stirrings began in the outer court. Father was almost 40, his health no longer what it had once been, yet the position of crown prince remained vacant. Ministers raised the old issue again and urged him to establish an heir as soon as possible. Among my imperial brothers, the most outstanding were my eldest brother and my fourth brother. Both were sons of the late empress. No matter which of them became crown prince and eventually inherited the throne, the future of consort Lan, Chu Yao, and the Song family behind them would not be easy. More importantly, Father's fury this time seemed to awaken consort Lan to something. Entrusting her entire future to the love of the man beside her was ultimately too intangible. She needed something more concrete to rely on. For example, a son. If she had a prince, she could support him in the struggle for the position of crown prince. If that son later ascended the throne, consort Lan would become Empress Dowager, and the Song family would become the emperor's maternal clan. Consort Lan had wanted a son for years. Unfortunately, despite years of treatment from imperial physicians, she had never succeeded. Now that she was cornered, she began grasping at any possible cure. The Song family secretly sent a female Taoist practitioner into the palace from outside. That happened to be the very day I ordered Xiaolu to make crystal hibiscus cakes. My maternal grandfather and grandmother had once operated the largest pastry shop in Jiangnan. Mother inherited her skills from my grandfather. In fact, her pastry-making ability was the very reason she had originally been selected to work at the Hall of Mental Cultivation. Back then, Ningcui Palace was little different from a cold palace. To pass the time, Mother often taught Xiaolu and me to make all kinds of pastries. Once they were finished, we could give some to guards and eunuchs so that they would make life a little less difficult for us on ordinary days. Crystal hibiscus cakes were among both consort Lan's and Father's favorites. As Xiaolu worked, she grumbled endlessly. Every time she put her whole heart into making something, only for someone else to claim the credit. Naturally, she resented it. I called her over, took a small paper packet from beneath my pillow and said, "Add this." The cakes had barely been finished when Chu Yao followed the fragrance to us. There were only 5 pieces on one plate. She looked at the delicate, beautiful pastries and smiled disdainfully. "Forget it. You are such a coward that you probably would not dare try anything." Then she directly ordered her maid to carry away the entire plate. What makes the most convincing lie? Hide one falsehood among 10, or even 100 truths. And what was the cleverest way to poison someone? Let 100, 1,000 batches of pastries be fragrant, delicious, and harmless. Tamper with only this one. In fact, Xiaolu had made 2 portions. Chu Yao took the portion with the added ingredients. I found a way to send the untouched portion to Father. Over the years, I had spent more money and effort than I could count cultivating eunuch Fu, the attendant closest to Father. I had never asked him for a favor before. This time I asked only that he place the plate of cakes before Father. As the sky darkened, Father came to see me. He sat beside my bed. Candlelight illuminated several strands of silver at his temples, while his face carried the gentle look of an ordinary father. "Does the wound still hurt?" I shook my head. With Father's concern, "It does not hurt anymore." Father said, "I know what happened to Tutor Liu was not your fault. Do you resent me?" I reached out and lightly grasped his sleeve. Jier is foolish. Since childhood, I have never known how to make Father happy the way 6th Imperial Sister does. Even though my heart respects and loves Father and wishes to be filial, I do not know how to express it. So when I saw father placed in a difficult position, I confessed of my own accord. I continued softly, when Jier lost her birth mother that year, even servants could bully me at will. It was Mother Consort Lan who raised Jier. Sixth Imperial sister is her own daughter, and she is both beautiful and clever. It is only natural that Mother Consort Lan favors her a little more. If Jier became jealous and resentful because of that, would I not be betraying father's kindness in entrusting me to Mother Consort Lan all those years ago? Father's expression shifted. He took my wrist and sighed deeply. You are also my daughter. Sometimes you do not have to be so sensible. Jier would never dare forget the grace of being raised. I looked up at him. Jier has not seen Mother Consort Lan for a long time. I heard she has had little appetite lately and has lost a great deal of weight. As her daughter, being unable to attend her is truly unfilial. Jier is injured and still confined. Father, could you accompany Jier to visit Mother Consort Lan once? Father frowned and deliberately darkened his face. I know exactly what you are scheming in that head of yours. I tugged lightly at his sleeve. Father, just this once. Indulge Jier one time. Fine. At least your intentions are filial. He ordered the servants to prepare a soft sedan chair for me. Just as we were about to leave the courtyard, Chu Yao suddenly rushed over, tears and mucus all over her face. Father, do you not want Jier anymore? Not yet. A good performance like this naturally had to be witnessed by her own eyes. I softly pleaded with father. Sixth Imperial sister has restrained herself more recently. She has not seen Mother Consort Lan in a long time either. A mother and daughter share a natural bond. Father, please show mercy this once. In the end, Chu Yao was allowed to come with us. She immediately clung to father, alternately admitting fault pitifully and acting spoiled and affectionate. Before long, father's expression had softened considerably. While coaxing him, Chu Yao tilted her head toward me and raised one eyebrow as though saying, "See, I am the daughter father loves most." Soon our party reached the outside of Yikun Palace. Because I had said beforehand that I wanted to surprise Mother Consort Lan, father ordered that no one announce our arrival. We walked straight inside. Yikun Palace was normally ablaze with lamps. That night, the candlelight was strangely dim. When the servants saw father, instead of calmly bowing as they usually did, each one dropped flat to the ground and trembled uncontrollably. Father immediately sensed something was wrong and quickened his steps toward the bedchamber. No servants were stationed outside the chamber. Inside, however, the silhouettes behind the window made the secret affair unmistakable. Your ladyship, who is better, me or His Majesty? Consort Lan answered in a strained voice. His Majesty is already getting old. Can I truly conceive a son after just one time? Of course. Father immediately clutched his chest, his whole body trembling. Eunuch Fu hurried to support him. Your Majesty! Your Majesty! Quickly, summon the imperial physicians! Father violently shook him off, charged forward, and kicked open the bedchamber door. Chu Yao ran inside and shrieked, Mother, have you gone mad? What are you doing? Her piercing scream echoed through the night, startling crows into flight. The neighboring palace halls probably heard the commotion. Father was dealing with the humiliation of discovering her betrayal. Naturally, I could not rush in just to enjoy the spectacle. Through the open door I saw the plate that had held the hibiscus cakes still sitting on the table. It was empty. I also saw Consort Lan in disarray. Every trace of color drained from her face the moment she saw father. Chu Yao rushed to her and shook her hard, asking whether she had gone insane, and how she could possibly have done such a thing. Father stormed into the adjoining tea room, came back carrying a sword and struck down the adulterer. Even that did not calm him. He immediately turned the sword point toward Consort Lan. Wretched woman, I gave you my whole heart. I favored you and protected you, and you dared do this. I will kill you. It was time for me to step in, add more fuel to the fire, and clear myself at the same time. I limped forward and threw myself between Consort Lan and the blade. Father, do not act rashly. Perhaps this is a misunderstanding. The sword tip grazed my cheek and left a shallow cut. It seemed that even if I had not intervened, that strike would at most have wounded Consort Lan. Even while enraged beyond reason, father still could not bring himself to kill the woman he's loved. His hands trembled. Move aside. I will kill this vile woman myself. Consort Lan shook violently, tears pouring down her face. She hurried to defend herself. Your Majesty! Your Majesty, I was framed. She pushed me away and clutched tightly at father's robe. Your Majesty refused to see me for so long. I was terrified. I only wanted a prince to rely on. At first this Taoist was dressed as a woman. I believed he was a female practitioner, so I allowed him into the inner chamber to perform a ritual. Who could have known he was a man? Halfway through the ritual, I suddenly felt unbearably strange and lost control of myself. Then she suddenly pointed at me, her eyes vicious enough to devour me alive. Your Majesty knows I have always been proper. Someone must have drugged me, otherwise I would never have become like this. It was her. Chue has always hated me. She deliberately used this method to take revenge. I immediately looked shocked and wronged. No, nothing like that happened. Why would I take revenge on Mother Consort Lan, much less in such a way? Besides, I have been confined this entire time and have never once stepped outside Fangfei Palace. Consort Lan opened her mouth but could not produce an explanation. She could not explain, because the moment she did, the truth that she had framed and destroyed my mother years ago would be dragged into the light as well. Chu Yao reacted much faster. Father, Mother ate hibiscus cakes made by Chu Wei today. The cakes must have been drugged. Consort Lan stared at her in surprise. Only then did she realize that all these years, even her beloved daughter had been hiding things from her. But keeping herself alive mattered more, so she immediately agreed. Yes, the cakes were the problem. Your Majesty, I was framed. I truly was. I knelt on the floor, tears streaming down my face. I made those hibiscus cakes for myself. 6th Imperial Sister came and took them directly from me. Father flew into a rage. Vile woman. For all these years, you and your daughter have bullied Jair and stolen her work to claim as your own. Did you truly think I knew nothing? I merely loved you both, so I turned a blind eye. Poor Jair still kept you in her heart and tried every possible way to reconcile you with me. I ate from that plate of hibiscus cakes too. Why was there nothing wrong with me? Let go of me. You disgust me. How could Consort Lan possibly let go? She could only weep and beg. Has your Majesty forgotten? Your Majesty and I were childhood sweethearts. You once promised to marry me as your empress. I immediately chimed in. Father, this must be Mother Consort Lan's first mistake. The people the Song family sent into the palace before were all women. I can guarantee it. Father's expression immediately became even uglier. He laughed coldly. How can you guarantee that? Would she tell you about filthy things like this? We merely happened to catch her this time. The more he thought, the angrier he became. He swung the sword hard. The blade flashed, leaving a severe cut across Consort Lan's face. Consort Lan clutched her face and screamed. Chu Yao had been about to plead for her, but now she froze in terror and shrank into a corner, trembling violently. After venting that burst of rage, Father seemed to age several years at once. In truth, whether Consort Lan had been framed no longer mattered. Father had seen her with the Taoist with his own eyes and heard her say with his own ears that he had grown old. The affection between them could never return to what it had been. Exhausted, Father issued the order in a hoarse voice. Consort Lan has committed an act of extreme disrespect. From today onward, strip her to commoner status and imprison her in the cold palace. Move the 6th princess to Ningsui Palace. Without a summons, she may not step outside. After saying this, all strength seemed to drain from him. His eyes rolled back and he fainted. Only then did Chu Yao come back to herself. She crawled toward him on hands and knees. Father, Mother's mistake has nothing to do with Jaoer. Why are you making Jaoer move away? Father, wake up. Eunuch Fu was experienced. On one side, he immediately ordered palace maids to drag Chu Yao away. On the other, he summoned imperial physicians to save Father. At the same time, he ordered guards to take Songlan away at once. Chu Yao continued screaming until her voice cracked. Father, wake up. Mother has only you in her heart. She must have been framed. Jaoer is innocent too. As the maids dragged her past me, Chu Yao stretched out a leg and tried to kick me. This is all because of you. It's all because of a bastard like you. If you had not proposed visiting Mother, none of this would have happened. I will tear you to pieces. I stepped back twice. 6th Imperial Sis, lower your voice. Is this really such a glorious matter? If you scream any louder, do you want the entire Imperial Palace to know that Commoner Lan committed adultery with another man? Eunuch Fu glanced at Chu Yao and instructed coldly. The 6th princess has a high fever and is delirious. She is speaking nonsense. Gag her. Chu Yao was dragged away. The guards immediately moved to seize Commoner Lan. Songlan screamed and struggled. Get away from me. I am the noble consort. Low-born bastards like you are not worthy to touch me. She resisted violently and even slapped the captain of the Imperial Guards across the face. The captain became angry as well. We are all Imperial Guards personally selected by His Majesty. Can our status possibly be lower than that male Taoist who disguised himself as a woman? Commoner Lan could involve herself with him, yet now she calls us filthy. Song Lan choked on her words. Shame, regret, and rage tangled across her face. Combined with her injury, the expression looked even more frightening. The guards took the opportunity to restrain her and drag her straight outside. she kept screaming hoarsely. Your Majesty! Your Majesty! It was Chu Wei. That bastard framed me. Someone framed me. Unfortunately for her, father was unconscious and could hear nothing. Father remained unconscious. Every prince and princess in the palace came to attend his sickbed. Everyone waited anxiously in a side hall of the Hall of Mental Cultivation. By then, they had surely all heard that Consort Lan had been reduced to a commoner, and Chu Yao moved away. Perhaps every one of them was sending people everywhere to discover exactly what had happened the night before. Only I knelt outside the Hall of Mental Cultivation. Eunuch Fu came to persuade me. Fifth Princess, His Majesty has not yet awakened. What use is it for your Highness to kneel here? Forgive me for speaking out of turn, but your Highness should think this through carefully. Do not act foolishly. Thank you for your concern, Eunuch Fu. She did raise me for many years. There are things I must do and words I must say, otherwise my heart will not be at peace. Eunuch Fu sighed and left. Not long after he went, my eldest brother arrived. He lowered his eyes and rebuked me quietly. Why did you not find a way to make father order her death directly? If weeds are not pulled up by the roots, they grow again when the spring wind blows. You know how much weight she carries in father's heart. If she ever turns the situation around, none of us will end well. I looked up at him and laughed coldly. Eldest imperial brother, we are allies. I am not your subordinate. You still have great ambitions left unfinished. I have only myself and long ago prepared to exchange my life for another life. So the person who truly needs to worry about exposure is you. Chu Song stiffened. Very quickly, however, he bent at the waist and clasped his hands. I was too anxious just now. You and I are brother and sister by blood, and now we are in the same boat. You must take care of yourself. The night grew late and everyone began to tire. My fifth imperial brother Chu Yang stepped outside for a moment. When he saw me still kneeling there, he ordered someone to place another cloak over my shoulders. It was not until the afternoon of the next day that father finally woke. He ordered me to rise but refused to see me. I heard his spirit was extremely depressed. He could hardly eat and spent the whole day in a daze. Yet his methods remained ruthless enough. He directly ordered the entire Song clan punished and destroyed. Every day, Xiao Liu and I made delicate dishes in the small kitchen and sent them over, but father never touched them. Every day, I also went outside the Hall of Mental Cultivation and knelt for 4 hours. Xiao Liu truly could not understand. Your Highness, what exactly are you doing? Strengthens his positions while clearing myself of suspicion. Commoner Lan committed an enormous crime. Father certainly does not want to remember her, speak of her, or see anyone connected with the incident, including me. But in the Deep Palace, familiarity always leaves some trace of affection. If father refuses to see me, it means I have lost his favor. Those who once suffered under Songlan will inevitably use me as a place to vent their anger. Then my situation will become extremely dangerous, I continued. Besides, father will never believe that he himself was wrong. He will only think that if I can still plead for Commoner Lan after she treated me so harshly, then I certainly bear no resentment toward a father he believes has always treated me generously. He will see me as a loyal filial child who remembers kindness. Xiao Liu murmured. So there are that many calculations behind it. If I were a master in the palace, I would have died 800 times already. On the 7th day, father finally agreed to see me. Nearly half his hair had turned white. His vitality seemed drained away, and he had aged tremendously. I had barely opened my mouth when father cut me off. If you have come to plead for that woman without distinguishing right from wrong, I will throw you into the cold palace with her. I bowed deeply and spoke clearly. I understand. But after all, we were mother and daughter once. I asked permission to see her and 6th Imperial sister one time. Father waved a hand. Granted, go. I withdrew toward the door, then stopped. In a soft voice I said, Father must take care of your health. I still hope that when I marry, when I become a mother, and even when I become a grandmother, I will still be able to return and bring father good news. Father coughed twice. His tone finally softened. I know. Autumn scenery outside the palace was beautiful, but the cold palace was dark, cold and silent as a place without living people. The lock had rusted. The eunuch responsible for opening the door sweated profusely and twisted the key several times before a dry click finally sounded. The door slowly opened. I stepped onto a thick layer of dead leaves. From deep inside came a hoarse, unpleasant singing voice. It was said that years ago, father had visited the Song residence. The moment he heard Songlan's clear, Oriole-like singing and saw her delicate beauty, he fell in love at first sight. The eunuch guarding the cold palace smiled bitterly. She sings day and night. 5th Princess, do not let it frighten you. After walking farther inside, I finally saw Songlan. She was still wearing the same clothes she had worn on the day she was deposed. With her back to me, she spoke in a voice full of grievance. Your Majesty, have you finally realized I was wronged and come to see me? My lips curved. It's me. Songlan spun around. The long wound across her face seemed to tighten with her fury. Xiaolu gasped and immediately stepped in front of me. Songlan's eyes overflowed with hatred. Do not think you can come here to laugh at me. His Majesty and I have shared affection since our youth, 20 years of deep love. He did not execute me. That alone proves I still have a place in his heart. I laughed. You do have a point. Father permitted me to come see you. I even brought you a change of clothes and some cosmetics. Xiaolu stepped forward and opened the bundle. Inside lay the Taoist's stained robe. My smile became gentler. You were my mother consort for so many years, yet I never had anything with which to repay you. You liked that Taoist so much, and you complained that father was old while he was young and strong. It took considerable effort to obtain this robe from his body. Holding the Taoist robe, I walked toward Songlan step by step. Come, mother consort. Look. Do you like it? Dark stains marked the chest of the robe. The memory of that night must have surged back instantly. Songlan backed away again and again, terror on her face. Do not come closer. Stay away from me. I needed only one glance. Xiaolu stepped forward and seized her. Songlan was already weak. Her injuries had never been treated, and in the cold palace she had barely enough to eat. No matter how fiercely she struggled, she could not escape Xiaolu's grip. I forcefully wrapped the stained robe around her body. Well, it still carries the Taoist's smell. Father is getting old after all. A young man truly has more vigor. Mother consort, smell it. She struggled desperately and screamed. Vile woman, little whore, you have such audacity. When His Majesty favors me again, I will marry you to the lowest beggar in the capital. I smiled and took a brand new bronze mirror from the bundle. With a sudden movement, I held it directly in front of her face. What an ugly face stared back from the mirror. A long scar of torn flesh crossed almost the entire face, like the claw marks of a demon. Songlan's eyes widened more and more. She tried to knock the mirror away but could not reach it. She could only wrench her head aside. No, that is not me. I seized her face and forced her to stare into the mirror. Look carefully at this face, old and terrifying. On top of that, you have slept with another man. Father's inner palace is full of beauties. Even if he softens for a moment and remembers you, one look at this face will kill every trace of desire. If he sees you again, you will only disgust him more. Songlan screamed wildly. No, impossible! His Majesty loves me most. This is all because of you, you vile woman. I slapped her several times in succession, then gripped her chin tightly and asked in a cold voice, being wronged, being falsely accused and framed, it hurts, doesn't it? Isn't that exactly what you did to my mother all those years ago? But my mother was never as filthy as you. She was innocent and upright her whole life. Unlike you, even that male Taoist who disguised himself as a woman could draw you into such disgrace. You are the truly vile one. Songlan's eyes rolled with rage. She glared at me as though she wanted to tear me apart and swallow me alive. I smiled even more brightly. That's right. I came here to tell Mother Consort some good news. 3 clans of the Song family have been exterminated, just like my maternal family was back then. Your elderly father, your sick mother, your elder brother, who only recently held his newborn grandson. Not one escaped. Father was still merciful though. In the end, he did not wipe out all 9 generations of your family. I asked sweetly, isn't that wonderful news? As for Chu Yao, she does not resemble father much at all. Instead, she looks rather like one of the cousins from your own natal family. I am thinking of finding a chance to mention a few words before father. Then he can drive her from the palace and marry her to the lowest beggar in the capital. What do you think? Songlan's eyes rolled back. Her whole body shook violently. Unable to withstand such an enormous shock, she fainted on the spot. Xiaolu stepped forward and slapped her a few times, but she did not wake. I stood and looked coldly down at the curled figure on the floor. Take the Taoist robe back, leave no trace. Prepare several sturdy mirrors for her, and give her some fine clothes as well. Xiaolu clenched her fists. I understand. We will soak the clothes in fishtail palm sap, so she can taste the suffering your highness endured. Then I will tell the people here to give her medicines and foods meant to invigorate the blood, and keep it circulating freely. That way, the scar on her face will be even harder to heal. She lowered her voice again. Or should we simply poison her to death? I still have that old packet of Crane's Crown Red. I glanced at her. You mention that old poison every day. Will it expire if you do not use it soon? She still looked eager to try, so I said only, no need. Someone else is even more anxious than we are to pull this weed up by the roots. Why dirty our own hands? When I left the cold palace, autumn sunlight covered my body. The sky was a clear blue and the white clouds looked soft as cotton. Mother, can you see this? I avenged you. It took almost 10 years, but I did it. Mother, rest in peace. I am no longer the small, weak Chu Wei who could only hide behind you. Now I am strong enough. I can protect myself, and I can protect you. Mother, if there truly is another life, let me be the mother and you be my daughter. Let me love you in return. Let me stand before you and shield you from every freezing wind, every rain and snow, and all the cruelty and filth in this world. Ningsui Palace stood close beside the cold palace. After leaving the cold palace and walking only a little over 100 paces along the covered palace corridor, I could already hear Chu Yao raging inside Ningsui Palace. You damned servants! The food is already cold and you still dare bring it to me? Aren't you afraid I will report you to father and have your heads cut off? Guards stood outside Ningsui Palace. I walked in just in time to see Chu Yao seize a teacup and several porcelain plates and hurl them at the eunuch who had brought her meal. One plate struck him squarely on the head. The eunuch immediately lost his temper. In a mocking, sing-song tone he said, "Sixth princess, times have changed. Commoner Lan committed such a filthy act and was thrown into the cold palace. You were moved to Ningsui Palace, but in truth this place is hardly different from the cold palace itself," he sneered. "In my opinion, you might not even be His Majesty's true daughter." Chu Yao went mad with rage and charged forward to slap him. "What nonsense are you saying? I will tear your mouth apart." But now that both sides had openly fallen out, the eunuch no longer feared her. He turned aside and pushed Chu Yao, casually. She fell to the floor at once. The eunuch raised his chin contemptuously. "If the food I bring does not suit the sixth princess, then I will simply stop bringing any. Sixth princess can starve," Chu Yao screamed. "You wretched slave! How dare you! I will have father wipe out 9 generations of your family." The eunuch rolled his eyes, completely unconcerned, and turned away. "Fine, my name is Little Fang. When your highness manages to see His Majesty again, then you can." His eyes met mine. The rest of his sentence jammed in his throat. Pure terror flooded his face. With a thud he dropped to his knees and began bowing his head to the ground again and again. "Greetings, fifth princess. Spare my life, fifth princess. Spare my life." By now the entire inner palace knew that Commoner Lan had been deposed, yet I had not been implicated at all. More than that, I had been attending father at his sickbed. Anyone with eyes could see how favored I was. The autumn air was cool and pleasant, yet the eunuch shook like a leaf, cold sweat covering his forehead. Only after he had bowed his head to the ground, 50 or 60 times did I wave my hand casually. "Go." He scrambled away as though granted a great pardon. Chu Yao had witnessed his arrogance toward her and his bone-deep terror toward me with her own eyes. I smiled at her and spoke slowly, one word at a time. "Chu Yao, there was something you once said that was absolutely right. One princess is not the same as another. Look at you now. You have become the despised bastard everyone loathes, while I am still the noble fifth princess." Chu Yao's eyes turned bloodshot, veins spreading through them. She ground her teeth. "Chu Wei, you vile woman. You finally showed your true face. Do not celebrate too soon. The daughter father loves most is still me. Once his anger passes, he will remember how good I am." "Shh, don't make noise. Listen." Chu Yao stared at me with hatred and suspicion. I raised an eyebrow, stepped closer, and lowered my voice. "Can you not hear it? Servants all over the inner palace are secretly discussing how your birth mother committed adultery with a Taoist. Some even say mother and daughter shared the same pleasure that night." Chu Yao's eyes bulged. "You're lying." "I'm not finished. They also say you do not resemble father at all, so you must be the bastard your birth mother conceived with some wild man. You look so much like her. Every time father sees you, he will immediately remember that night. He will remember your mother's red undergarment, embroidered with mandarin ducks fluttering in the room." I bent even closer and asked gently, "Tell me, do you still think father wants to see you? Will he be like those servants and suspect that you were never his daughter at all, but the bastard born from your shameless mother and another man?" Chu Yao collapsed completely. "You are lying. I will kill you. I am father's daughter. You are the bastard born from a cheap woman." In a frenzy, she slapped me across the face. During these days she had been exhausted in body and spirit and had hardly eaten properly. The slap did not truly hurt. But my skin was naturally pale and delicate, so half my face reddened immediately. Very good. My goal had been achieved. Xiaolu's eyes reddened with rage and she tried to rush forward to settle accounts with Chu Yao. I pulled her back at once. "Let's go. There is no need to argue with a bastard." Chu Yao went nearly insane. "I am father's daughter, you are the bastard. Everyone in your family is a bastard." I hurried toward the door. Deliberately turning my reddened cheek toward the 2 guards stationed there, I instructed, "Watch carefully. If sixth imperial sister leaves this door and gets lost, when father investigates, I will not be able to explain it for you. Both guards bowed immediately, hardly daring to breathe. The moment we left Ningshui Palace, I quickened my pace. Xiaolu ran after me until she was panting. Your Highness, where are you going? To the Hall of Mental Cultivation to attend father. But, Your Highness needs medicine on your face first. I laughed. If I put medicine on it, wouldn't I have suffered that slap for nothing? Chu Yao was weak and I was walking quickly. Even so, by the time we neared the Hall of Mental Cultivation, the redness on my cheek had already faded a little. I slipped into an empty corner, raised my hand and slapped myself hard. Only then did I put on a face veil. When I entered the Hall of Mental Cultivation, Eunuch Fu happened to be carrying in a bowl of freshly prepared medicine. In the past, I had always personally served father when he took medicine. I behaved gently and respectfully and advised him in a soft voice. Father, medicine works best when it is still hot. But he kept staring at my face. Why are you wearing a veil today? An insect bit me this afternoon, and a patch of my face turned red. Jair was afraid of startling father, so I covered it. If you are unwell, go back and rest. I have plenty of attendants, I answered gently. I naturally know father does not lack attendants. But I want to attend father personally. Then I added, what I am about to say is slightly disrespectful. In the past, even when I wanted to show such filial devotion, I never had the chance. I only hope father will not mind how clumsy I am. Father patted the back of my hand and silently drank the entire bowl of medicine. I said nothing more. Only when I was withdrawing from the bedchamber and gently closing the door behind me did father suddenly call, Jair, you went to see that woman and Chu Yao earlier, didn't you? My hand trembled faintly. Yes. Father's gaze turned cold at once. Come here. I approached the bed. He reached out and pulled sharply. My thick veil fell away immediately, revealing half my face, red and swollen. Father became furious and coughed from the force of it. Was it that woman or Chu Yao who hit you? I dropped to my knees at once. It was only an insect bite. It does not hurt at all. Father, please do not investigate. It did not take long for Eunuch Fu to return with the results of his inquiry. The fifth princess brought the sixth princess many clothes, foods, and pieces of jewelry. She even punished a servant who had shown disrespect, but the sixth princess? He hesitated. The sixth princess slapped the fifth princess once. The guards stationed at Ningshui Palace all saw it clearly. The fifth princess did not say a word, she simply left with her maid. Father laughed coldly. Even now she knows no repentance. Today she dares strike her elder imperial sister. Tomorrow will she dare strike me, her father, as well? An imperial physician was applying medicine to my face. Father looked at me and spoke with helplessness in his voice. Being born into the imperial family, knowing only softness and kindness is not a good thing. Even after coming before me, you do not know how to complain of injustice. How did I give birth to a daughter as soft as dough? I was a daughter as soft as dough. Naturally, I needed a hard-hearted emperor like him to vent my anger for me. Chu Yao was charged with disrespect toward her elder imperial sister, and with harboring resentment over father's punishment. She was sent out of the palace to an imperial convent to calm her mind and repent. The convent stood outside the imperial palace, and the Song family had already been destroyed. From then on, I feared Chu Yao would no longer have any chance to send word to father. As for me, father granted me the honorific title Princess Duanru, and a fief carrying the revenues of 3,000 households. Previously, only the second princess and Chu Yao, both born to Songlin, had held fiefs. Even theirs had been nominal fiefs, prestigious in name but without actual authority over the territory. Another half-month passed. Father's health gradually recovered. Songlan, however, had become somewhat mentally unstable after I provoked her in the cold palace. Combined with the harsh living conditions there, it did not take long before she became gravely ill and bedridden. Before dying, she begged painfully to see father one last time. I accompanied him. Unexpectedly, Songlan managed to suppress her hatred of me. She softly admitted fault, repeatedly spoke of their past, and begged father to bring Chu Yao back. Father's expression gradually became nostalgic. He seemed to waver slightly. So I reached out and lifted the thick bed curtain. Songlan's aged face was completely exposed. A savage scar stretched across it, hideous and frightening. Father recoiled several steps in shock. He no longer wanted to hear anything she said. He turned and hurried away. Behind us came Soln's scream. Chu Yuanbai, you once said you would stay by my side for this entire lifetime. Why did you betray me? Why? After that accusation, she breathed her last. She died in the cold palace, and she died completely within father's heart as well. Songlan's corpse was rolled in a torn mat and thrown out of the palace. Perhaps it was eventually discarded in some mass grave to be gnawed by stray dogs and cats. That night, Xiaolu and I shut the doors and drank a great deal of wine. Tears streamed down Xiaolu's face. Your Highness, her ladyship has finally been avenged. You endured so much suffering all these years. At last it was not for nothing. I tilted my head and looked at her. Do you think Song Lan was the only person who caused Mother's death? Xiaolu pressed her lips together. A long time later, she clenched my hand. Your Highness, stop here. Her ladyship surely only wanted you to live well. Wait until young Master Su passes the examination. Marry him, leave the imperial palace far behind and live a quiet, ordinary life. But once one lived in the imperial palace, hidden currents surrounded one on every side. Where could there ever be truly peaceful days? Not long after Song Lan died, the year's first snow fell over the capital. The underfloor heating in the Hall of Mental Cultivation was lit early. By then, I had moved into the west wing of Fangfi Palace. The Imperial Household Department delivered a full allotment of silver thread charcoal even before I asked. That day, I met Chu Song in the Imperial Garden. He asked, "Things here are finished. Would you like to leave the palace and burn a stick of incense at your birth mother's grave to comfort her spirit?" I looked at him deeply. Where was my birth mother buried? Qingcheng Mountain, east of the city, has beautiful scenery. I had your mother consort buried there. Qingcheng Temple on the mountain is extremely popular with worshippers. The winter solstice is approaching. You can tell father you want to leave the palace to pray for blessings. I considered it briefly, then smiled. All right, I will follow eldest imperial brother's arrangements. The moment I returned to my palace and the door closed, Xiaolu hurriedly asked, Your Highness, the first prince is probably planning to harm you. Her ladyship's remains were never. I covered her mouth with one hand. I know, but I still have to go. You know there is a tiger on the mountain, yet you still intend to walk toward the tiger? Exactly. If I already know where he has hidden the tiger, I can prepare for it in advance. If I refuse to go this time, who knows where he will hide it next? But we have lived in the deep palace for years. How are we supposed to prepare for something like this? I rotated the teacup in my hand and asked, Tell me, among my imperial brothers, is there anyone who does not want to become emperor? Xiaolu jumped and immediately looked left and right like a thief. Does that even need asking? If your highness were a man, I would urge you to compete too. Then you could marry many handsome husbands. Who knows how wonderful life would be? I laughed. I truly had never known this girl possessed such ambitions. I tapped a finger against her forehead. Since eldest imperial brother is already eager to discard me now that I have served my purpose, why shouldn't we turn his scheme against him? Xiaolu immediately understood. I understand. Snow had fallen heavily on the mountain. Father initially refused to let me leave the palace, but he could not withstand my coaxing and a few carefully timed tears. In the end he agreed, though he wanted to send 100 guards with me. Chusong frowned. Father, the winter solstice is also a day when common people climb the mountain to pray for blessings. Sending so many guards would create too great a display. I fear it would be inappropriate. I immediately agreed. Eldest imperial brother is right. Under father's rule, Great Chu is peaceful and prosperous. Qingcheng Mountain has always been safe. We have never heard of bandit trouble there. I wish to pray for father and for Great Chu. If this journey disturbs the people, then the prayer itself loses its meaning. 2 guards in disguise will be enough to protect me. Snow fell for 3 days in succession. On the winter solstice, the sky unexpectedly cleared. Even the weather seemed to favor those with plans. I changed into ordinary clothes and dressed like the daughter of a normal noble family. Protected by 2 guards, I set out for Qingcheng Mountain. The snow on the mountain had not yet melted. Layer upon layer of white covered the green pine and cypress branches. Now and then a gentle wind passed through. Leaves rustled and snow drifted down in soft showers. Heaven and earth stretched away in an endless field of white. Occasionally, a few birds unafraid of the cold swept across the sky. The vast scenery made my heart feel open and unburdened as well. Along the road, we met many people climbing the mountain. There were young masters and young ladies from great families accompanied by crowds of servants, and there were poor commoners in coarse cloth who struggled simply to reach the summit. After worshipping at each Buddhist hall in turn, I lifted my head and saw Su Yan standing not far away, smiling gently at me. I left the main hall and walked toward the meditation rooms. He immediately followed and handed me a fortune slip, his face bright red. The 5th prince told me that your highness would come to pray for blessings today. I came early. Just now I even drew a marriage fortune. It was the most auspicious kind possible. Before he could finish, terrified cries for help suddenly rang out outside. Xiaoliu and I turned at the same time and hurried several steps forward. The temple, solemn and peaceful only moments before, had fallen into total chaos. Mounted bandits had charged directly inside. A horse struck a small child. When the child's mother rushed forward, a bandit struck her down as well. Terrified people scattered in every direction. The mounted bandits trampled through the grounds. Their arrogant laughter echoed across the summit. My guards reacted quickly and immediately closed ranks around me. Your Highness, there are roughly 50 or 60 of them in the courtyard right now. There are probably accomplices outside as well. Allow me to escort Your Highness to the rear courtyard first. Shielding me, they moved me toward the back. Shuyan appeared stunned out of his wits and remained rooted to the spot. In the middle of the chaos, I had to reach out and pull him before he came back to himself and hurried after us. By the time we reached the meditation rooms in the rear courtyard, the place was already crowded with people seeking refuge. Many children of noble families had brought household guards, but those men knew only enough martial skill to protect a residence. The bandits outside were clearly trained fighters. The captain of my guards was named Li Hu. After settling me inside, he quietly climbed to the roof to observe. When he came down again, his expression was extremely grim. Your Highness, the entire temple is surrounded. I estimate there are at least 300 bandits outside, and not one looks ordinary. I will prepare 2 options. First, we launch a smoke signal asking for help. But as far as I know, there are no troops stationed within 30 miles of here. Second, I will send someone down the rear slope of the mountain to seek reinforcements, but the snow is deep and the road difficult. A round trip will take at least 8 hours. I fear? Shuyan shuddered and asked in panic. Then what should we do? Li Hu handed him a saber. I heard young Master Su is skilled in riding and archery. Take this blade. If matters become desperate, you can help us protect Her Highness. Su Yan's hands shook violently. The first time he reached for the heavy saber, he could not even hold it. He hurriedly bent to pick it up, his face full of shame. All right. Outside, bandit laughter never stopped, mixed with the continuous cries of the people. Inside, every face was pale. Some of the more timid people had already fainted. I drew a deep breath and raised my voice. In our current situation, a direct fight cannot be won. If they are mountain bandits, most of them must want money. Money and possessions are expendable. Life is what matters most. I removed my hairpins and earrings and ordered Xiaoliu and the guards to take out all the money and valuables they carried. Seeing this, the others immediately began removing hair ornaments and taking out silver as well. Before long, we had collected an entire basin full of valuables. The temple abbot also brought all the incense donations from the halls. Li Hu carried the valuables outside to negotiate. The other side merely glanced at them before laughing loudly, his voice rolling across the mountain. You think this pile of junk can send me away? I have enough money to last me 3 lifetimes. I heard a noble person from the palace came here to offer incense today. I have been a bandit for years, but I still do not know what a princess or imperial consort tastes like. Today, I came for that noble person. If she obediently comes out and leaves with me, I cannot be bothered to take the lives of the rest of you. If she refuses, he let out a strange laugh. I will burn this entire temple to the ground. Not one of you will escape. Chaos exploded inside the meditation room. Desperate to live, people began looking at one another and asking, which noble person? Who from the palace are the bandits talking about? So that was it. This was Chusong's plan. The bandits had directly demanded me by identity. If I voluntarily walked out and allowed myself to be taken deep into the mountains, I would almost certainly lose my life. Even if I died with a glorious reputation for sacrificing myself to save the people, what use would that be? I would still be dead. And the secret that Chusong and I had once joined hands to bring down Songlan would no longer threaten him. If on the other hand I hid and refused to emerge, then even if I somehow survived, I would lose the people's hearts and father's favor as well. A vicious move indeed. At the moment of greatest confusion, an unfamiliar woman in the crowd suddenly raised her hand and pointed straight at me. It's her! She is the 5th princess. I once attended a palace banquet with my husband and saw her there. In an instant, every gaze in the room fixed on us, suspicious, probing, hopeful. My guards immediately tensed and closed more tightly around me. The woman continued loudly, Look, she has so many powerful guards protecting her. If it isn't her, then who else could it be? Then she dropped to her knees and bowed her head to the ground repeatedly. 5th princess, please save us. I have a child at home who is only 2 years old. 5th princess, please show mercy. With her taking the lead, the other commoners dropped to their knees as well, bowing to the ground and crying out their circumstances. 5th princess, my 80-year-old mother is waiting at home. 5th princess, I am my family's only son. If I die here, my family line ends. Fifth princess, all 15 sound mouths in my household depend on me alone for support. Li Hu immediately drew his sword and shouted, "Back, all of you back! How dare you pressure a princess like this?" Among the crowd, one young woman remained standing. She swept a cold gaze across all those kneeling on the ground. "You have wives, children, and elderly parents. Does the fifth princess have no loved ones? Can none of you see that this is clearly the bandits' scheme?" As she spoke, she came to my side and stood in front of me. I had seen her at a palace banquet. She was Fang Mingyue, the only granddaughter of the late Marquis of Pingyuan. The men of the Marquis of Pingyuan's household had all died on distant battlefields. No male heir remained. Only Fang Mingyue was left. She drew a dagger from her boot and offered it to me. "Fifth princess, before death, generals and ordinary soldiers are equal. Princesses and commoners are equal as well. Your Highness, do not let their words force you onto a dead end." What a frank and clear-minded young woman. Unfortunately, her words could not persuade the others. Outside, the bandits began killing again. They killed 5 young novice monks in succession and threw the bodies outside the meditation room. The woman who had recognized me screamed, "I don't want to die. Let's tie up the fifth princess and send her outside." The desire to live could overwhelm even fear of imperial authority. The crowd began slowly closing in around me. Fang Mingyue immediately stood before me. "What are you trying to do?" I drew a deep breath and pushed her gently aside. "I will go outside." Xiaolu's eyes immediately reddened. "Your Highness, no." Li Hu's face darkened. "I will go with your Highness. I fear they will not allow that." I leaned close to his ear and lowered my voice. "How could ordinary bandits know my movements? This matter is extremely strange. You must find a way to control the woman who led the others into forcing me out just now." Li Hu suddenly looked up. He clearly had not expected me to remain so calm at such a moment. Fang Mingyue insisted on going with me. "Fifth princess, I have no father or brother, no children or grandchildren, and nothing left in this world to bind me. I was born into a military family. If I can die today killing enemies, I will not betray the teachings of the Fang ancestors." I considered it briefly. There were indeed some matters for which I needed a witness. The Fang family had been loyal for generations and had never participated in factional struggles. Fang Mingju's word would carry far more weight than that of an ordinary person. But those men will not be easy to deal with. You may lose your life. Fang Mingyue smiled. No one in the Fang family has ever feared death. Then she abruptly lowered her voice. "Besides, that person cares so much about your Highness. Naturally, I should protect you as well." So she was the reinforcement sent by the ally who had remained hidden all along. I did not hesitate any longer. I firmly ordered Xiaolu to stay behind, had Fang Mingyue pretend to be my maid, and opened the meditation room door. Before leaving, I turned to look back. The commoners who had knelt and begged me to save them all avoided my gaze. At last, my eyes stopped on Xu Yan. His mouth opened as though he wanted to say something, but the savage shouts of the bandits outside made him quickly lower his head. He silently retreated several steps and hid himself among the crowd. Fang Mingyue asked, "What is your Highness looking at?" I replied softly, "A flower that died before it had the chance to bloom." I glanced at Xiaolu. She understood at once, took from her sleeve the jade pendant Xu Yan had once given me, and stuffed it into his hand with open disgust. In that instant, all color drained from Xu Yan's face. I drew a deep breath and strode toward the front courtyard. The bandit leader sat high on horseback, an ominous smile at the corner of his mouth. "You do look rather like that dog emperor." Men immediately came forward and tied Fang Mingyue and me. During the struggle, Mingyue's arm was injured. The leader reached out, hauled me onto his horse, locked me against him, and laughed loudly. "Back to the mountain. I cannot wait to find out what a princess tastes like." He led a group of his men away from the temple. Before leaving, he said coldly to those remaining behind, "Burn the temple. Do not let a single person escape alive." I immediately struggled. "You said that as long as I came out, you would spare those innocent people. I can ignore the others, but Li Hu and Xiaolu absolutely cannot die." The leader threw back his head and laughed. "Fifth princess, you are truly naive. We are bandits. You actually believed a bandit's word?" The entire group urged their horses down the mountain. I looked back. Thick smoke was already billowing into the sky behind us. I could only pray silently that there was still enough time. The bandits raced downhill, hooves pounding so hard that snow cascaded from the branches. The freezing wind screamed past my ears until my face felt almost numb. Just as we were nearing the foot of the mountain, several pine trees appeared across the road ahead, broken beneath the weight of the heavy snow and blocking the path. The bandits were forced to rein in their horses. Without waiting for an order, several men jumped down and began moving the trees. Fang Mingyu, tied on a horse behind us, suddenly laughed coldly. I doubt you are bandits at all. How could ordinary bandits know the princess's movements? How could ordinary bandits gather several hundred men, coordinate so smoothly and train with such discipline? Who are you really? The leader turned and studied her carefully, then looked surprised. So it is you. The Marquis household has only you left to carry on the line, yet you still do not know how to value your life. You know too much. You cannot be allowed to live. He raised his long saber and slashed straight toward Fang Mingyu's neck. I screamed in horror, don't. Just as the blade was about to fall, a long arrow suddenly tore through the forest with a sharp whistle. The leader reacted extremely fast and twisted aside, but the arrow still struck his shoulder. Charge! Capture the bandits alive and claim the reward! Shouts erupted from every direction. Countless soldiers rushed from the woods and quickly surrounded the bandits. Gao Da, left commander of the Imperial Guards, charged at the front on horseback and engaged the bandit leader directly. Fang Mingju and I were both rescued. It was in truth an extraordinary coincidence. Several consecutive days of heavy snow had buried a farmstead behind Qingcheng Mountain. That morning, commoners had come to seek aid. Gao Da was ordered to bring 500 Imperial Guards to the disaster area. When they reached a point not far from the mountain, they happened to see the smoke signal Li Hu had launched from the summit. They then discovered several bandits standing watch near the foot of the mountain. After questioning them, Gao Da's men learned what was happening above. They cut trees to block the road and arranged this ambush. During the fighting, a stray arrow struck my arm. The imperial physician later said that my left arm would never again be able to bear very heavy force. Qingcheng Temple burned fiercely. Many people, panicking as they tried to escape, died beneath the bandits' blades. Fortunately, Li Hu and Xiaolu did not fail the task I had given them. They kept the woman who had exposed my identity under control. Only 15 miles from the capital, directly under Father's nose, a group of so-called bandits had dared publicly humiliate and abduct an imperial princess. It was no different from throwing Father's dignity onto the ground and trampling it without mercy. I was safely escorted back to the palace. The moment I stepped down from the carriage, I came face to face with Chu Song. For an instant, the shock and terror in his eyes were almost impossible to conceal. I looked at him, and my tears came whenever I wanted them to. Eldest imperial brother, Jier nearly died today. Only then did Chu Song recover. He hurried forward as though to support me. What happened? How did you end up like this? After Gao Da and Li Hu gave their reports, Father erupted in fury. He smashed the inkstone washer he normally treasured most. Chu Song's face also reddened with anger. Father, these bandits are utterly lawless. They show no respect for your majesty at all. I believe all of them should be escorted to the Eastern execution ground and put to death before the people as a warning to others. I glanced at him. Eldest imperial brother, you are far too guilty and anxious. Father also paused and gave him one look, though he said nothing. Fang Mingju, by contrast, became anxious at once. Your Majesty, I fear these people were not merely bandits. She recounted the incident from beginning to end. I had called for everyone to gather money and valuables, yet the bandits showed no interest. They specifically demanded the noble person from the palace. At that exact moment, a woman in the room stood up and incited everyone to force me outside. After seeing me, the leader even remarked that I resembled Father. He also recognized Fang Mingyu as the last surviving member of the Fang family and then tried to kill her to silence her. She related every detail. Li Hu hurriedly added, the other guards and I are all trusted men of your majesty. We would never leak the princess's movements. In addition, those men were systematically trained, and their weapons and crossbows were made to the same specifications. How could ordinary bandits accomplish that? How could Father fail to understand what that implied? These so-called bandits were very likely private soldiers secretly maintained by someone within Great Chu. Under Great Chu law, even an imperial prince was not permitted more than 100 private residence troops. Yet 300 trained men had appeared today alone. How many more were hidden in darkness? Several hundred? Several thousand? Tens of thousands? All of them were hidden just outside the imperial capital like tigers watching their prey. It was no different from laying a sharp sword beside Father's pillow, ready to take his life at any moment. Father's face turned black with fury. He asked me, Jier, what do you think of this? The aftershock of fear had not left me. My whole body was still trembling. I stammered, Father, did I disgrace you? Did I damage the dignity of the imperial family? Father froze. Then he walked over and stroked my head. Silly child. You did very well. You always seem soft and weak. I never expected you to show such courage in a crisis." My tears immediately spilled over. I threw my arms around him and sobbed. "Father, I was terrified. I only thought that I was Father's daughter and absolutely could not bring shame upon you. I thought I would never survive the disgrace. I thought I would never see Father again in this life." Father patted my shoulder with pity. "Do not be afraid. No matter who tried to harm you, Father will see justice done for you." I obediently lowered my eyes. From the corner of my vision, I saw Chusong's hand clench unconsciously. Father immediately ordered the Court of Judicial Review to investigate thoroughly and interrogate the prisoners severely. The court and the public were both shaken. Those who had personally witnessed the incident praised me endlessly for my righteousness and for loving the people as though they were my own children. Naturally, they would never tell outsiders that they themselves had joined together to force me out and trade my life for theirs. So they could only place the lofty label of patriotism and compassion on me, hoping that since I had survived, I would not pursue those less honorable details. The Court of Judicial Review questioned the prisoners for an entire day and gained nothing. Unexpectedly, after only one night, the bandit leader died mysteriously in prison. Father went mad with rage. At morning court, in front of all the civil and military officials, he kicked the Chief Justice of the Court of Judicial Review. "If you cannot investigate this matter to the bottom, I will treat you yourself as the mastermind behind it." If such a charge were truly fixed upon him, it would be a grave crime, punishable by the extermination of 9 generations of the offender's family. Everyone in the Court of Judicial Review immediately worked without rest. Even if the leader refused to speak, there were more than 200 men beneath him. Could every single one remain silent to the end? 2 days later, someone finally confessed. The first person dragged out was the woman who had stood up and pointed me out in the meditation room. After that, more and more prisoners broke under pressure and began talking. That very night, the Chief Justice entered the palace and personally presented the results of the investigation to Father. Not long afterward, a unit of imperial guards rode out of the city during the night and surrounded an abandoned mountain village north of the capital. The whole mountain region had long been rumored to be haunted. During the past several years, most residents had gradually moved away. No one expected the imperial guards to capture more than 1,000 people trained in martial arts there. They also seized more than 1,000 long sabers, bows and crossbows. At first light, Xiaolu woke me. "Your Highness, His Majesty has summoned you to the Hall of Mental Cultivation." I hurried there. Chusong was already kneeling inside, a fresh injury marking his forehead. One of Father's inkstones lay by his feet, showing what had caused the injury. When Father saw me, he pointed at Chusong and roared, "Your 5th sister is here. She is a woman and has no opportunity to inherit the throne. Tell me, why did you want her dead?" I widened my eyes. "Father, what are you saying? How could the person behind this be eldest imperial brother? Eldest imperial brother has always treated me very well. When my birth mother was gravely ill all those years ago, if he had not helped, how could I ever have reached Father to cry out for justice?" Father's expression slowly became complicated. He angrily rebuked me. "Fool! He was using you, and you still thought he sincerely wanted to help." As he spoke, Father seemed suddenly to think of something. "So you saw that JR is favored by me now, and you feared she knew about your filthy methods, so you wanted." Father abruptly stopped. He strode down from the raised platform, his sharp gaze locking onto Chusong. "The matter involving Commoner Lan, did you interfere in it? JR had deep feelings for the woman who raised her. Were you afraid she knew about what you had done? Or?" Father turned and gave me a long, penetrating look. "JR, what weakness of your eldest brother do you hold in your hands?" I waved both hands repeatedly. "Father, I have lived in the deep palace all year, while eldest imperial brother operates in the outer court. How could I possibly have anything against him?" Chusong now faced 2 charges, attempting to murder his imperial sister and secretly maintaining private soldiers. If he admitted involvement in the matter of Commoner Lan, he might drag me down with him, but he would also add the crime of drugging an imperial consort to his own list. Before her downfall, Commoner Lan had still been Chusong's father's consort and therefore his secondary mother by rank. Acting against her was far more serious than acting against me. Chusong was no fool. Sure enough, he immediately defended himself. "Father, I have been wrong. The matter of Commoner Lan had nothing to do with me. I acted against Chu Wei because I received a report that Commoner Lan's downfall occurred because Chu Wei put drugs into her food. Chu Wei appears respectful and obedient on the surface, but her heart is cunning and vicious, yet Father trusts her so completely. I feared she would harm father, and I also feared father could not withstand another terrible shock. That is why I wanted to remove her quietly. I am not making an empty accusation. I have a witness and physical evidence. I beg father to believe me this once. The witness was a palace maid who had previously served Commoner Lan. The physical evidence was a crystal hibiscus cake that had turned yellow with age. Judging by its condition, it truly looked as though it had been kept for 2 or 3 months. On the day father and I went to Yikun Palace, the plate on the table had clearly been empty. I had not expected Chusong to preserve a final move like this. It appeared that today he intended to drag me down with him. Once my guilt was established, even if I later accused him of having conspired with me, he could simply claim that I was desperately biting back at anyone I could in order to save myself. After all, the young eunuch who had once passed messages between us had surely been disposed of without a trace by now. The palace maid kept bowing her head to the floor, insisting that Commoner Lan had suddenly changed temperament because she ate this very cake. Weeping, she begged father to see justice done for her former mistress. Father looked at me, his expression unreadable. Jair, what do you have to say? I knelt and lowered my head. Father, rumors have long circulated in the palace saying that I was the one who harmed the foster mother who raised me. I am willing to let imperial physicians inspect the cake and prove my innocence. Chusong frowned at me. He probably could not understand why I remained so calm. Father immediately summoned 3 imperial physicians to examine it together. They inspected the cake carefully. After some time, one finally reported, "Your Majesty, something else was indeed added to this cake." Chusong breathed out in relief. He looked at me. His lips moved without sound. "Chuwei, let us die together." Father also sat straighter at once, disbelief on his face. The chief imperial physician saw that father's expression was wrong and hurried to continue. Medicinal ingredients were indeed added, but they mainly relax the muscles and invigorate the blood. They are not harmful to the body at all. In addition, those ingredients can also help relieve pent-up melancholy. The chief imperial physician paused for a few beats, then nodded. "They do indeed have that effect," I said softly. During that period, I saw that father was depressed. Eunuch Fu also said that father usually dislikes taking medicine, so I thought of this method. Later, 6th Imperial Sister took away the portion of cakes I had prepared for myself. I thought the medicinal ingredients were harmless, so I did not explain further. I smiled bitterly. Perhaps because I was not Mother Consort Lan's biological daughter, even a final act of filial concern was enough to make others suspicious. Then I looked at Chusong. "Eldest Imperial brother, do you now believe that I never intended harm toward the foster mother who raised me?" Chusong shook his head repeatedly. "No, impossible. If you did not poison the cakes, then how did you do it?" Perhaps the collapse of his last hope of dragging me down destroyed his composure as well. Chusong lunged at me, seized both my shoulders and roared, "Tell me, how did you know I planned to harm you and prepare in advance? How did you bring down Commoner Lan? Who exactly is helping you?" The guards rushed forward and forced him down. Father, even more enraged, kicked him hard. "You committed grave crimes, yet instead of repenting you tried to bite back at your 5th sister to save yourself. Do you think your only crime is attempting to murder your own sibling? Why did you raise so many soldiers? My health has been poor recently. Were you planning rebellion? Were you hoping I would die early so you could sit in this position?" When the Son of Heaven was enraged, the entire hall became so silent one could have heard a pin drop. Even the candle flames seemed afraid to crackle. Chusong's face went deathly white. He shook without stopping. "Father, I had no such intention. Those more than 1,000 men were only for self-protection. Such a small force could never threaten father." Father laughed coldly. "If they had not been discovered early, who knows how many men you would eventually have raised. Hear my decree." The first prince attempted to murder his sibling and secretly raised private troops. He is to receive 50 strokes of the heavy rod in front of the court, then be escorted to the imperial clan court and imprisoned there. He will never be permitted to leave for the rest of his life. No matter how Chusong begged, father did not waver. The guards dragged him away. This time, Xiaolu finally breathed a sigh of relief. "Your Highness, it seems His Majesty truly does love you. Once that edict is issued, the first prince will never have a chance to recover in this lifetime." Did father love me? Perhaps a little, but the weight I held in his heart was still far below that of the eldest son he had personally raised since childhood. The reason he punished Chusong so severely was simply that Chusong had kept private soldiers. Keeping private troops meant harboring thoughts of rebellion. Only when the blade finally pressed against father's own neck did he feel pain. Only then did he truly strike without mercy. When I left the Hall of Mental Cultivation, the sun had already risen fully above the horizon. I asked Xiaoliu, have the commoners who died at Qingcheng Mountain been properly taken care of? The capital prefecture is handling it. It should already be arranged. I looked toward the warm sunlight on the horizon. Xiaoliu, did you notice? From beginning to end just now, father never mentioned those people even once. Take silver out of my treasury and comfort the families of the victims on my behalf. Xiaoliu supported my arm. Your Highness need not worry. That side was arranged in advance. Chusong was beaten in front of the court. It was an enormous humiliation and also meant that he had completely lost any chance of becoming crown prince in this lifetime. Father did it not only to sever every remaining thought Chusong might harbor, but also to let every prince and minister concealing ambition in his heart see clearly what happened to those who did not know their place. After 50 strokes before the court, Chusong was barely breathing. The next time I heard news of him was half a month later. Xiaoliu came to report, Your Highness, the first prince has repeatedly sent messages asking to see you once. I went to the prison of the imperial clan court to meet Chusong. His beard had grown wild, his eyes were lifeless, and his clothes hung loosely because he had lost so much weight. His hair was disordered and had been tied carelessly at the top of his head. He lay face down on a crude bed and could barely sit up. When he saw me, Chusong smiled faintly. You were willing to come. So you intend to answer the questions in my heart. He struggled to shift closer, his gaze still sharp and oppressive. How did you discover the trap I set? Who is helping you? As the old saying goes, even a dead centipede does not immediately go limp. Fallen power does not vanish overnight. Chusong had once been the powerful first prince, able to wield enormous influence. Even though he was imprisoned in the imperial clan court now, the fourth prince remained outside. They had surely investigated again and again, yet they still could not find any suspicious connection between Gao Da and another party. I smiled, because Gao Da never received orders from anyone. That day he truly was carrying out an order to rescue disaster victims. As for how I recognized your trap, I paused, because I knew long ago that you never buried Mother's body. It would have taken only one sentence from you, yet you let her corpse be thrown into a mass grave. If a kind person had not helped, I fear even Mother's bones would no longer remain. You used paying respects at Mother's grave as an excuse to lure me out of the palace. How could I believe you meant well? Chusong's eyes widened. You knew from the beginning. Then why did you still cooperate with me? Because you were the most suitable person to cooperate with, I answered indifferently. Your eyes and ears are everywhere in this palace. Framing people, killing them, and plotting against them. Aren't those the things you are best at? Chusong suddenly burst into loud laughter. I thought I had you under control. I never imagined that from beginning to end, the one being used was me. Tell me, who is your true ally? Third brother? Fifth brother? Sixth brother? His eyes kept shifting. Or is it fourth brother, my own full brother? I took 2 steps back. You will know soon enough. Whoever father establishes as crown prince is my true ally. Then I added, in truth, if you had never tried to kill me, I would never have revealed the secret that you and I once joined hands in harming someone. What killed you was not me, but your own suspicion and fear. I turned and walked out. Behind me, Chusong shouted, Chu Wei, come back and tell me who it is. Who? And how did you make Commoner Land fall into your trap? After leaving the imperial clan court, Xiaoliu asked quietly, Your Highness, are you really not going to tell him? We used such a brilliant plan, yet no one knows. It is like wearing splendid embroidered robes in the dark. No one gets to see them. I am itching to boast about it. I looked at her. Do you know what kind of person dies fastest? Xiaoliu blinked her large round eyes. I laughed. The kind who talks too much. We are still far from the moment when everything truly ends, so I still cannot tell Chusong. More than a month earlier, while making a scented sachet, I had placed a small amount of medicinal material inside it. Chuyao later took that sachet and gave it to Songlan. Because the scent was unusually pleasant, Songlan hung the sachet at the 4 corners of her bed curtains. There was nothing wrong with the sachet. There was nothing wrong with the cakes either. But when the fragrance from the sachet mixed with the medicinal ingredients in the cakes, together they could arouse desire. This was something Mother had taught Xiaoliu and me when we were young. She said food was among the purest and most beautiful things in the world. The most dangerous thing was the human heart. If we did not understand the human heart, we might eventually taint the purity of food itself. She also warned me that cooking and pastry making could save people, and could also kill them. Unfortunately, in the end I still failed to follow the teaching she had given me years ago. The affairs of Commoner Lan and Chusong dealt Father too heavy a blow. His health grew weaker by the day. But perhaps Songlan's remark that he had grown old had truly pierced his pride. Even though his body could barely endure it, father still summoned young consorts to his bed day after day. He also constantly pressured the chief imperial physician to prescribe strengthening tonics. Those potent tonics were extremely damaging to the body, but when the emperor commanded, which physician dared refuse? In the end, the chief imperial physician came to me. "Fifth princess, His Majesty has always loved your highness most. Please persuade him." I frowned. How am I supposed to begin a conversation about such a matter? Still, for father's health, I will think of a way. That morning, I went to visit father. From far down the palace corridor, I saw the phoenix carriage used to return a consort, after serving the emperor, leaving the hall of mental cultivation and heading toward the imperial garden. The woman inside was in an excellent mood and softly hummed a little melody. In the middle of the cold winter, the tune carried a hint of Jiangnan charm. Xiaoliu lowered her voice. Inside is noble Lady An, who has been favored recently. When she first entered the palace, she was only a low-ranking concubine. Before long, she was promoted to noble lady. It seems she did not take your highness's warning to heart. I remembered her. She was around my age. When Songlan was still present, she had no chance to rise at all. At that time, I had discreetly warned her that father was already old and was not a good marriage for her. If she was willing to wait a little longer, perhaps a different future would open before her. I withdrew my gaze. Let's go. Good advice is wasted on someone bent on courting disaster. Inside the hall of mental cultivation, father was already awake. Eunuch Fu sent someone to tell me, His Majesty invites the fifth princess to take breakfast with him. A palace maid was changing the incense in the burner. As I passed, I glanced at it and said, "This calming incense is burned at night. After 2 to 4 hours, it burns out. Father is not healthy now. Letting the lingering incense smoke remain in the room can also make him uncomfortable. Why did you not clear it away promptly?" The palace maid hurriedly lowered her head. "The fifth princess is right. I will never dare be careless again." Father's complexion was rosy, and he looked unusually energetic. Only upon close observation could one see the fine red veins that had appeared in his eyes. During the meal, we spoke only about trivial matters, and the atmosphere was quite harmonious. In the middle of the conversation, father suddenly asked, "Jir, the court ministers keep urging me to establish a crown prince. Among your imperial brothers, whom do you think is suitable?" I froze. Father is still in good health. Why be so anxious? Father is a wise ruler. I only hope Great Chu will forever remain under father's rule. Father burst out laughing. "Did you smear honey on your lips before leaving your palace today?" I smiled sweetly. "Father, every word I say comes from the heart." Father's smile faded. "I am only asking for your opinion." "Speak freely. Although this concerns state affairs, it can also be considered a family matter. Telling me what you think would not be overstepping." I thought for a moment. "Fourth imperial brother." Father looked genuinely surprised. "Why him?" "He is the legitimate son of the late empress. I have also heard that he has always had a reputation for virtue and is well regarded among the court officials." "Anything else?" "I have never been particularly close to any of my elder or younger imperial brothers. That is all I can think of." Father sighed, and the sharpness in the depths of his eyes finally softened. "It seems there was no point in asking you." Only then did the taut string in my heart loosen slightly. This old fox really had been testing me. Fortunately, I had remained alert. I would never be foolish enough to reveal my hand at a time like this. Eldest imperial brother and fourth imperial brother had the same mother. Eldest imperial brother had just harbored treasonous intentions and been sentenced to lifelong confinement. How could father possibly feel at ease placing fourth imperial brother in the position of crown prince? Fourth imperial brother had good relations with the court officials. At a moment like this, that was not an advantage at all. On the contrary, it would only make father more suspicious of him. But it was obvious that father had truly begun considering the question of a successor. Second imperial brother had a disabled leg. Third imperial brother had a cruel temperament. Father had reservations about fourth imperial brother. Fifth imperial brother was born to a mother of relatively low rank. Sixth and seventh imperial brothers were not yet 10 years old. For the moment, it was genuinely difficult to tell who had the upper hand. Meanwhile, rumors about me began spreading through the capital. That day, I had voluntarily stepped forward for the sake of the common people. It had indeed been a righteous act. But I had also truly been lifted onto a horse by the bandits, and had physical contact with them. In the eyes of some people, I was already tainted. No matter how good my reputation was, it could not erase the fact that a bandit had held me in his arms. Some even secretly speculated that perhaps I had been violated along the way. The imperial family claimed that I had been rescued very quickly, but did that necessarily make it true? Perhaps it was merely a story meant to conceal a scandal. After inventing their own lurid version of events, those people clicked their tongues and declared that the fifth princess had been groped by bandits, and that they would not want her even if she were offered to them. As if saying such things truly made me unworthy of them. As if it proved that they looked down on wealth and rank, and were somehow nobler than everyone else. Perhaps those rumors eventually reached father's ears as well, because he began ordering people to look for a husband for me. One day, Xu Yan sent word that he wanted to see me. We had not spoken since the winter solstice. Xiao Liu sneered. Surely he does not still have the nerve to ask your highness to wait until his name appears on the examination honors list. I met Xu Yan at a pavilion in the academy. It was the heart of winter, and the yellow plum blossoms were at their most beautiful, their faint fragrance drifting through the cold air. He bowed and presented a wedding invitation with both hands. Your Highness, my father has arranged a marriage for me. The wedding is set for the 18th day of the first lunar month next year. I wonder whether I might have the honor of inviting your Highness to drink a cup of celebratory wine? He lowered his eyes. I also wish to keep the promise I made years ago, but after my father and stepmother heard those rumors, they said they absolutely could not allow an unchaste woman to enter the Xu family. They even threatened me with death. Before I could speak, Xiao Liu exploded in anger. She rushed forward and knocked the wedding invitation from his hands. Xu Yan, what do you take our princess for? You dare say such things to her? Do you no longer want the head on your shoulders? Xu Yan dropped to his knees with a thud and bowed his head to the ground 3 times in succession. I would never dare. But a marriage is arranged by one's parents and the matchmaker. I cannot defy them. It is only that I lack the good fortune to be with your highness. Please do not grieve too deeply and damage your health. I laughed. Why should I grieve? I am very happy for you. I wish you and your future wife a harmonious marriage and a lifetime together until your hair turns white. I reached out and broke off the most brilliantly blooming plum branch. I will not attend your wedding. Such a trivial affair is not worth making me lower myself to appear in person. I handed him the branch. Take this as my wedding gift. You may thank me now. Xu Yan stared at me in a daze. His lips parted, and there seemed to be a trace of unwillingness in his eyes. Your Highness, are you truly not sad at all? I was already losing patience and no longer felt like pretending. Xu Yan, I misjudged you before. At Qingcheng Temple, when danger was right before us, you showed not the slightest sense of responsibility. You are cowardly and selfish. I barely survived and returned alive, yet you became frightened by a few rumors, hurried to become engaged to someone else, and then pushed all the blame onto your father and stepmother. I looked down at him. No matter how vicious the rumors become, I am still the most honored princess of Great Chu. I bent down and lifted his chin with one fingertip, enunciating every word clearly. Love and marriage were never what I intended to spend my life pursuing. And a cowardly rat like you is even less worthy of occupying my thoughts. Xu Yan's face turned ashen. His body went limp and he collapsed onto the snow-covered ground. Xiao Liu spat angrily beside him. Cord. Go home and look in a mirror before deciding whether you are worthy. That evening, 5th Imperial brother Chu Yang came to see me. We spoke through a curtain of pearl beads and his voice was low. 5th sister. Do you blame me? I replied. If 5th brother had not deliberately let Xu Yan learn that I was going to Qingcheng Mountain that day, I might never have seen his true face. 5th brother, I should be thanking you. Chu Yang let out a breath of relief. As long as you understand, I only wanted to use the opportunity to test how sincere he truly was. Who could have guessed that he would prove so useless? I lifted the beaded curtain. 5th brother, the larger situation has not yet been settled. It is not appropriate for you to come see me now. Go back quickly. Yes. From beginning to end, my true ally had always been Chu Yang. His mother had also come from a humble background. Even after giving birth to Chu Yang, she had only been promoted to the rank of noble lady, and was never favored by father. Noble lady Zhang and my mother had lived through very similar fates. Father had taken a liking to them, and for that reason alone, both women had been forced to abandon marriages already arranged for them, and enter the depths of the imperial palace. When my mother became gravely ill years ago, noble lady Jiang was the first person I went to beg for help. She did everything she could, and only then did an imperial physician finally agree to come examine my mother. Unfortunately, her own rank was low as well, and she had nothing as precious as 1,000-year-old ginseng to give us. Later my mother was falsely accused and died. It was noble Lady Jiang and Chu Yang who quietly had people search for her body, then secretly buried her and erected a gravestone. That was why, the moment Chu Song said he wanted to take me to pay respects at my mother's grave, I knew there had to be a trap. It was only a pity that someone as kind as noble Lady Jiang did not meet a good end either. Because she offended noble consort Lan, she died on her 30th birthday. From then on, Chu Yang and I appeared almost like strangers in public. In secret, however, we never once broke contact. After my mother died, there was a period when I was utterly hopeless and could barely face another day. It was Chu Yang who secretly came to see me every day, bringing me whatever good things he possessed, though he himself had very little. It was also Chu Yang who helped me find a purpose that made me struggle to stay alive. My birthday and Chu Yao's were only 3 days apart. Everyone in the palace remembered hers. No one remembered mine, not even father. Only Chu Yang did. Every year on the exact day, he personally prepared a gift for me. He would always smile and say, "Happy birthday, little sister Jair, you are another year older." When the sap from a fishtail palm made my whole body itch, he secretly caught several fireflies to distract me. When copying scriptures with a bronze brush left my wrist aching, it was also he who quietly sent me ointment. That was how I came to know Xu Yan, who had been Chu Yang's study companion. For all these years I had stood in the light while Chu Yang remained in the shadows. To outsiders, we seemed to have almost nothing to do with each other. In truth, we had always remained tightly connected. Inside this deep palace, the two of us were the ones who truly behaved like brother and sister. We were the only family each of us could trust. Chu Yang looked me over carefully. Only after confirming that I truly was not upset over Xu Yan did his voice soften. "Jier, you have already done more than enough all these years. Leave the rest to me." He took my hand. "I will make every guilty person pay the price." Fifth Imperial brother began revealing his abilities. It seemed to happen in the blink of an eye. Father ordered all the princes to begin participating in government affairs. Chu Yang was assigned the most difficult matters, yet he completed them better than anyone else. Father quickly discovered that Chu Yang was capable, steady, seemingly free of ambition, and extremely filial. More importantly, Chu Yang's mother was already dead, and his maternal family had no powerful influence at court. In Father's eyes he posed very little threat. As for Father, now that he was old and no longer restrained by Song Lan, he began surrounding himself with newly favored consorts and indulging in the attention they gave him. It restored the confidence Song Lan had once trampled into the ground. One day, while two newly entered consorts were attending him, Father suddenly gave a choking cry and collapsed unconscious. Chu Yang and I were the first to arrive. The hall of mental cultivation was in complete chaos. The imperial physicians were using acupuncture in an attempt to save him. I covered my nose and complained, "What incense is this? The scent is far too strong. Why has no one carried it outside and extinguished it?" The palace maids did not dare delay. They immediately carried the incense burner out. After examining Father, the imperial physicians concluded that he had taken an excessive amount of potent strengthening tonics. The medicines had caused his vital energy and blood flow to surge violently out of balance, resulting in a stroke. His already weakened body had been pushed almost to complete exhaustion. The time he had left was likely very short. The chief imperial physician discreetly signaled that we should prepare for the worst as quickly as possible. When Father regained consciousness, all the princes, princesses, and senior ministers were already kneeling beside his bed. He could no longer speak, but his mind retained a little clarity. At that moment, establishing the crown prince became the most urgent matter. The chancellor asked one name after another. "Second prince?" Father shook his head. "Third prince?" Father shook his head again. "Fourth prince?" He still shook his head. When the chancellor finally mentioned Chu Yang, Father remained silent for a very long time. At last, he slowly nodded. The chancellor seemed to have a great burden lifted from his shoulders. He immediately drafted the edict establishing Chu Yang as crown prince. Some were pleased and others distressed, but the crowd gradually withdrew. The chief imperial physician repeatedly warned everyone not to let Father become agitated again. I sat beside the bed and held Father's hand tightly. Tears of reluctance welled in his cloudy eyes. The palace maids and eunuchs had all withdrawn. I looked at the old ruined man before me, and the corners of my lips slowly curved upward. "Father, do you still remember my mother?" Anger immediately flashed in Father's eyes. I laughed. "No, I do not mean Song Lan. I mean my birth mother." Father looked blank. I smiled, mockingly. "I knew it. You forgot her long ago. She had wonderfully skillful hands and could make the most delicious pastries in the world. She had a beautiful singing voice and could sing the gentlest lullabies. She also had an extraordinarily kind heart. Even knowing that she might be punished, she could not bear to watch someone else be placed in a difficult position, so she went in that woman's place to attend you while you were drunk. My gaze gradually turned cold. You took her to your bed, and after a single night, you forgot her completely. She had originally been about to leave the palace. She was about to marry the childhood sweetheart she loved. That man waited for her for 10 whole years. From the time he was 15 until he was 25. People's hearts change easily, yet he waited for her for an entire decade. Do you know how precious that was? She was your woman too. She risked her life to bear your child. You plucked her like a flower, then abandoned her to wither. You stood by while the woman you loved most poured every kind of filth over her name. And it was not only her. Noble Lady Zhang, fifth brother's mother, had also once had a betrothed. But you did not care. You did not care whether those women were happy. You did not care whether they lived or died. You cared only about satisfying your own momentary desires. I looked at father and smiled coldly. They could have lived better lives. They could have grown old in peace. You are the one who destroyed those possibilities. You were the true executioner who killed them. Father's mouth kept opening and closing like that of a stranded fish. Perhaps he wanted to defend himself. Perhaps he wanted to call for someone. The smile on my lips only deepened. Do you think I am heartless? You treated me so well, yet I dare to hate you. But every good thing you gave me in these later years was something I schemed and struggled to seize for myself. I learned your preferences. I flattered you. I acted like the kind of child you wanted. But I was your daughter to begin with. Loving me and protecting me should have been your natural responsibility. You were never worthy to be my father. You were even less worthy to be fifth brother's father. Father forced his mouth open. A broken sound came from his throat. Unfilial, daughter. I leaned close to his ear and laughed softly. Father, shall I tell you a secret? In truth, you did not have to die this quickly. Fifth brother and I tampered with your incense burner and your food. And there is something else. Songlan's adultery happened because I drugged her. She was not wrong about one thing. You are old. You have not been what you once were for a very long time. That sudden return of strength you have been so proud of recently? Fifth brother and I deserve the credit for that too. The position of crown prince you gave him can serve as our payment. Father's eyes widened with rage. He struggled weakly, and a broken cry escaped him. Someone? My expression went cold, and I prevented him from calling for help. Rest, father. I will stay here beside you until the very last moment. When you reach the world below, if you meet the women you failed, remember to atone properly. He was already far too weak. Moments later he died. I drew a deep breath and slowly stood. Dawn is almost here. This endless night is finally over. I blinked, and in an instant my eyes filled with tears. Then I cried out in a voice filled with grief and panic. Someone, come quickly. Father! Something is wrong with father. After father's death, Chu Yang ascended the throne. He granted me the rank of princess of the first rank, added another city to my fief, and ordered a separate princess manor built for me north of the capital. The remaining women in father's harem were all sent to an imperial convent. However, Chu Yang secretly sent people to ask what each of them wanted. Any woman who did not wish to spend the rest of her life in a convent was allowed to leave, conceal her name and past identity, and live an ordinary life. Chu Yang married Fang Mingyu and made her empress. Many court officials opposed the decision. Mingju's natal family had declined, and there were no surviving men in the family. They could offer no help in consolidating the new emperor's position. The Grand Tutor suggested that Chu Yang marry the chancellor's legitimate granddaughter as empress and merely make Fang Mingyu a consort. Chu Yang refused. If I did that, how would I be any different from father? Someone else proposed marrying me into a powerful aristocratic clan in exchange for political support. Chu Yang immediately rebuked him. Jier is the younger sister I cherish most. If she meets someone she loves and willingly chooses to marry, then she may marry. If she does not wish to marry, what is wrong with the imperial family supporting her for the rest of her life? After Chu Yang ascended the throne, Su Yan, as his former study companion, should logically have risen with him and enjoyed a brilliant official career. Instead, someone submitted an impeachment against the Su family. Chu Yang immediately ordered an investigation, and solid evidence was soon uncovered one piece after another. Some members of the Su family were imprisoned, others were exiled. As for Xu Yan, he would never again have the opportunity to enter officialdom for the rest of his life. That year at the start of springs, Chu Yang took me to the eastern side of the capital. Together with the common people, we went into the fields to encourage spring farming. From a distance I saw Xu Yan among the crowd. He wore coarse cloth, his hair was disheveled, and he looked haggard as he stared at me blankly. Our eyes met. He immediately became agitated and tried to rush forward, as if he had countless things he wanted to say. I turned away before he could approach. Pretending that my footing was unsteady, I lightly took hold of the wrist of the heir to the Duke of Anguo standing beside me. The young heir had just 18. His face immediately flushed bright red. He truly was an innocent young man who could not withstand even a little teasing. Perhaps Xiaoliu had not been wrong after all. Finding a few handsome, strong men to become my husbands might just make my days as blissful as those of an immortal. Thank you for supporting Panda. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Your support helps us bring you more amazing stories. Now, let's begin story 2. When father wanted to sell government posts to fill the treasury, my eyes lit up. Sell the same office to 2 families, then let one attend court on odd-numbered days and the other on even-numbered days. We could collect the money twice. When he wanted to execute an upright censor for speaking too frankly, I said darkly, I heard his only son is exceptionally handsome, and his 60-year-old mother is still quite charming. Why don't we bring both of them into the palace to enjoy a life of luxury? After that, father could no longer manage to be a foolish ruler. Every day after court, the first thing he did was come looking for me with a disciplinary ruler in hand. When I was 13, I finally found my biological father. That day, heavy snow blanketed the capital. I wore cloth shoes so worn that my toes stuck out and sat outside Chengtian Gate for half a day, clutching half of a dragon-shaped jade pendant inside my clothes. At first, the imperial guard at the gate thought I was another person trying to claim kinship with the royal family. I shoved the jade into his hand and said, Please take this inside. Tell His Majesty that the romantic debt he left behind in Jiangnan 13 years ago has come to collect. The guard nearly threw the jade back in my face. He stood frozen with it for a long time, apparently weighing the danger of disturbing the emperor against the thrill of helping His Majesty acknowledge an old love affair. In the end, his appetite for gossip won. About 2 hours later, I was led into Xikan Hall. The Emperor of Great Yan, my father, sat behind the imperial desk without even wearing his crown. He held the jade pendant up to the lamplight and examined it. He was 32 that year, with long brows, deep-set eyes, and a face that would make even court historians hesitate before putting anything unflattering to paper. I had a face like that too. Father lifted his head. Every attendant in the hall stopped breathing. We stared at each other across half the great hall. He asked, Where is your mother? Dead. His expression changed. When? Last month. He stepped down from the dais, walked around me once, then crouched and compared my brows and eyes with his own. No need to test any further. He turned to the old eunuch behind him. With a wicked-looking face like this, one glance is enough to know she is mine. When I was 3, I once suffered a very high fever. After I woke up, an extra set of memories had appeared in my mind, memories that did not belong to me. In those memories, father was the last emperor of Great Yan, extravagant beyond measure and cruel to loyal officials. 10 years later, the empire would fall to internal rebellion and foreign invasion. When the capital was breached, he would set fire to the star-picking terrace and burn himself to death, taking half the imperial palace with him. As for his daughter, the history books did not record a single word. I had always assumed I must have died young. Only later did I learn that mother had taken me into hiding in Jiangnan and had never registered me in the imperial genealogy at all. Now mother was dead, and surviving alone had become too difficult. That was why I had come to find this future ruler of a fallen dynasty and enjoy a few good years while I still could. As for the destruction of the empire, that was 10 years away. I had not even secured my next meal. I truly did not have the leisure to worry about the state of the realm a decade from now. Father ordered snacks brought in. I stuffed 2 pieces into my mouth in quick succession. While he was telling the servants to prepare clothes for me, I slipped a 3rd piece into my sleeve. When he turned around, his gaze landed on my frayed cuff. The great hall fell silent for a moment. Then father pushed the entire plate toward me. This is your home. No one is going to fight you for food. I wanted to explain that I was simply used to being poor and always kept a little extra, just in case. But then he lowered his eyes to my soaked shoes. You walked all the way here from Jiangnan? If there was a cart going my way, I hitched a ride. If not, I walked. His face darkened at once. That night, people from the imperial wardrobe, the jewelry bureau, and the imperial kitchen packed the side hall until there was barely room to stand. Father tried to make up for everything he possibly could. He even gave me Changle Palace, which had stood empty for years. The imperial clan court was summoned into the palace in the middle of the night, so my name could be entered into the imperial genealogy the next morning. Father asked whether there was anything else I wanted. I swallowed a spoonful of bird's nest soup, thought seriously for a moment, and asked, "When you die, can you leave the throne to me?" The old eunuch's fly whisk dropped to the floor. Father, however, was delighted. Ambitious. When I was little, I spent all my time hoping the late emperor would hurry up and die too. Eunuch Li's knees hit the floor. "Your Majesty, you cannot say such things. There are no outsiders here." Father patted my shoulder, looking more satisfied with me by the second. "Once your name is entered into the genealogy, I will have the ministers discuss it. Great Yan has had women inherit the throne before. Besides, you are my only child. They will agree whether they like it or not." I asked, "Why am I your only child?" Father sighed. "Children are too expensive. I never wanted to raise one before, so that was it." No wonder the two of us had felt like old friends from the moment we met. The next day, I was formally granted the title Princess Jiaoning. I also finally understood why Father had always been reluctant to spend money on children. The treasury was so empty that even a mouse would crawl in, take one look around, and leave in tears. The late emperor had spent years waging war, and had left behind an enormous deficit before Father took the throne. Worse, Great Yan had suffered repeated natural disasters, while local offices everywhere were stuffed with officials who collected salaries and did no work. Father had been on the throne for 3 years. Plenty of money had been allocated, yet each time funds were sent out, they vanished without so much as a splash. Every time the Minister of Revenue turned a page in the accounts, he looked as though he were mourning at the treasury's funeral. The minister cried poverty in court, and Father returned to the imperial study to sigh at the ledgers. I was planning to go to Jiangnan next spring, stay for half a year, and build another traveling palace. He flicked the beads of an abacus, looking increasingly heartbroken. "At this rate, I won't even be able to afford a proper dragon boat." I sighed with him. "Why don't we sell government posts?" Father's head snapped up. I pulled the abacus toward myself. "Someone can study for 10 years and still fail to pass the highest imperial examination. Rich people, on the other hand, usually lack patience. We can charge more for positions in the 6 ministries. Local offices can be priced according to how prosperous the area is. For remote counties, buy one and get one free. It solves our immediate money problem and saves them the hardship of studying." Father's eyes lit up. "Go on. If someone is assigned too far away, they can pay extra to switch to a post closer to the capital. If they do not have enough cash, they can pay half up front and have the rest deducted from their future salary." Father nodded enthusiastically. He even added, "Could we raise the price during holidays and festivals?" As expected of my own father. One explanation and he understood immediately. Encouraged, I revealed my final trick. Sell one office to 2 families. One attends court on odd days, the other on even days. Then we can collect payment twice. Father was so shaken by my shamelessness that he fell speechless. He wanted to be a foolish ruler, certainly, but he still cared a little about appearances. I was different. I had no intention of preserving even his reputation. At that moment, there was a crash outside the door. Prime Minister Pei had come to submit a memorial and accidentally knocked over a brazier. About an hour later, 6 senior ministers were kneeling in the imperial study. After they had taken turns trying to reason with us, Father rubbed his forehead and asked a question completely unrelated to state affairs. "If a 13-year-old child has already gone astray, can she still be saved?" The 6 ministers secretly looked at me. I sat beside Father eating pine nut candy and smiled at them in a friendly manner. Grand Tutor Shu, already over 60, spoke first. "When my eldest grandson was 13, he secretly shaved off my beard to make the wick of a lantern. He now serves in the Hanlin Academy and is considered a respectable man." The Minister of War followed. "When my second son was 12, he skipped school and followed a traveling acrobatic troupe for 80 li. After I caught him and personally studied with him every day, he stopped running quite so far away." "Your families have children like this too?" Father sat straighter. "I thought only the imperial family managed to raise useless offspring." The ministers suddenly felt they had found kindred spirits and began competing to tell stories about their own troublesome children. By the end, the tense atmosphere in the imperial study had completely vanished. Grand Tutor Su seized the opportunity to conclude, "When raising children, verbal instruction is never as effective as teaching by example. If Your Majesty wants the princess to be upright and trustworthy, Your Majesty must first be upright and trustworthy. If Your Majesty wants her to care for the people, Your Majesty must care for the people as well." Father understood. "So if I want to teach her not to sell offices, I cannot sell offices myself. Exactly. Then how am I supposed to make money? The tutor went silent. Father rubbed his temples, clearly trapped in a painful dilemma. I kindly tried to rescue him. You do not necessarily have to sell them yourself. I can do it for you. That day's meeting on child rearing ended unhappily. Afterward, Father not only confiscated my pine nut candy, but also ordered Grand Tutor Shu to fill my entire schedule with lessons. Unfortunately, we were one step too late. Word of the message I had asked Eunuch Li to spread had already gotten out. On the third day, 2 salt merchants from Jiangnan arrived with bank drafts and fought until both were bloodied in front of the palace gate. Both claimed to have bought the same deputy prefect position in Luanzhou. Both held receipts stamped with the seal of a director in the Ministry of Personnel. When they were brought into the imperial study, Father summoned me on the spot. You really sold the same office twice? I was even angrier than he was. Of course not. I was going to wait until they entered the palace before taking their money. It seems someone has already collected it on our behalf. Father and I looked at each other. We became furious at the same time. Outrageous. We had not even had the chance to embezzle that money ourselves, and someone else had stolen it first. The 2 receipts listed different sums, but the signature on both belonged to the same official. When the Ministry of Personnel director was dragged in, he still tried to claim innocence. One of the salt merchants, panicking, immediately gave the exact date, place, and name of the middleman who had taken his money. The other refused to be outdone and exposed 3 more officials. I was delighted by how quickly things were developing and offered them a suggestion. Inform each other. Whoever exposes more crimes gets the office. Prime Minister Pei did not even have time to stop me before the 2 merchants began tearing into each other. One talked too fast, so the other grew desperate and recited the amount of salt tax his rival had evaded the previous year more accurately than he could have recited his own birthday. They traded accusations from local water transport offices all the way to the Ministry of Personnel in the capital. The censors followed the trail. Before long, they found account books hidden behind a household shrine in a private residence and dragged an entire chain of officials into the case. The ledgers also listed several payments sent to the Liu residence, recording only the amounts and not the recipient's name. The investigation lasted a month. The confiscated silver filled 2 entire storerooms at the Ministry of Revenue. Father circled the chests 3 times, then leaned close to my ear. Half for you, half for me? I was just about to nod when the 6 ministers responsible for educating us walked in through the door. I strongly suspected that those men normally kept watch near the treasury, waiting specifically for the moment. Father and I developed improper thoughts. Father coughed loudly. All of it goes into the state treasury. Not a single coin is to be touched. The entire court praised His Majesty for his wisdom. They also said I had deliberately used the sale of offices as bait to lure corrupt officials into revealing themselves, thereby helping the court pull out its first poisonous thorn. I explained twice that I had genuinely intended to sell the offices. Grand Tutor Shu nodded reassuringly. Your Highness is still young, yet already possesses the virtue of hiding your accomplishments. Father quietly covered my mouth with his hand. After the office-selling scandal, he finally accepted that I might truly have gone astray. He officially began trying to educate me into a ruler who possessed virtue, intelligence, physical strength, and proper refinement. He even went to consult several senior ministers. Grand Tutor Shu was responsible for my studies. Prime Minister Pei handled moral conduct. The Minister of War handled riding and archery. The Minister of Rights handled etiquette and bearing. To practice teaching by example, Father started waking up with me before dawn every day. I held a horse stance while he practiced boxing. I memorized lessons while he reviewed memorials. I cut back by 1 plate of pastries, and he cut back by 1 pot of wine. 7 days later, the 2 of us hugged each other in Changle Palace and burst into tears. Father said, "Being a wise ruler is too miserable." I wiped my tears and agreed. Being the daughter of a wise ruler is miserable too. How about I exile Grand Tutor Shu? Before you exile him, execute the Minister of War first. I still have to run 5 li tomorrow morning. Father, I truly cannot run anymore. Father stroked my head. You have a point. Unfortunately, the phrase, teach by example, had become a rope tightening around his neck. During the day, he had promised Grand Tutor Shu not to kill people arbitrarily. That same night, he could hardly go back on his word. So he had no choice but to help me think of another solution. In the end, we decided to pay someone to run in my place. Eunuch Xiaofuzi borrowed the Northern Camp's training roster from the Ministry of War. I flipped through 2 pages and immediately chose a soldier named Wang Daiyang. He ranked first in every monthly assessment. His legs must have been excellent. The next morning, all he had to do was put on my outer robe and run around the training ground at a distance. Who would recognize him? I stuffed 20 taels of silver into Xiao Fuzi's hands and sent him to hire the man. About an hour later, Xiao Fuzi returned alone. "Where is Wang Dayang?" I asked. Xiao Fuzi looked miserable. "Your Highness, there is no such man in the northern camp." I frowned. "Was he transferred?" "No." He hesitated, then said, "The quartermaster told me Wang Dayang died of illness 3 years ago." I looked down at the roster again. Wang Dayang's monthly pay had not missed a single payment. The evaluation column still neatly recorded him as ranked first. Dead for 3 years, yet first in the examination every single month. Xiao Fuzi added, "I thought something was wrong too, so I checked 4 more names from the list. One died the year before last. One returned to his hometown long ago. No one in the entire northern camp has ever seen the other 2. The longer I stared at the roster, the angrier I became. Taking salaries for non-existent soldiers was bad enough, but falsifying the records so thoroughly that I could not even hire someone with money in my hand was intolerable. At that hour, Father was still wrapped in blankets and sleeping soundly in his bedchamber. I led my people straight inside, yanked open the curtains, and slammed the roster beside his pillow. "Father, wake up! Someone is stealing our family's money." Those words were more effective than the bell calling him to court. Father threw on an outer robe and took me directly to the northern camp. The camp had received no warning beforehand. Its rolls listed 3,000 soldiers, but fewer than 2,000 could actually be assembled on the training ground. When the name Wang Dong was called, someone at the end of the line shouted a response. The imperial guards dragged the man forward. He dropped to his knees. "Your Majesty, spare me. I am Zhao Si." Father asked, "Then why did you answer for Wang Dong?" "The quartermaster ordered it. Whenever a name is called and no one answers, I am supposed to shout a response. At the end of the month, I receive an extra half-string of coins." The sleep vanished completely from Father's face. He immediately ordered the camp sealed. The stable ledgers recorded 800 warhorses. In reality, there were fewer than half that number, and there were even donkeys mixed among them. The spear shafts in the armory had rotted hollow and snapped with one bend. Pieces of armor could be twisted with bare hands. Holding half a broken spear shaft, I asked the quartermaster, "If a real battle comes, what are you planning to charge the enemy with?" The man trembled on the ground. "The capital region has been peaceful. For now, we have not needed them." I thought his reasoning was fairly convincing. Father, however, immediately ordered him dragged away. The Minister of War rushed over. Remembering that only a few days earlier he had used military discipline to lecture me, he removed his official hat and knelt at once. Father ordered the chief censor to investigate the army and told the minister to make amends by auditing the accounts. Half a month later, 6 officers involved in drawing salaries for ghost soldiers had been thrown into prison. The Ministry of War's ledgers also revealed several payments made to a trading house belonging to the Liu family. The record said supplies had been delivered, but not even a shadow of those goods could be found in the warehouses. The northern camp was handed over to General Huo, who had just returned from the frontier. General Huo was famous for strict military discipline. If the army's funds were short by even a single coin, he would dare to block the gate of a minister's residence and demand it back. On the day he formally took command, I tugged Father's sleeve. "So, do I still have to run tomorrow morning?" General Huo cupped his hands. "Your Highness, help the court clean up the army rolls. All the more reason you should lead by example." I turned to Father. "If we execute him now, is it still in time?" Father covered my mouth and pulled me away. "Say a little less. Look, the Minister of War's legs have gone weak again." 3 months later, the army camp had completely changed. Father and I had also lost a noticeable amount of weight from our daily training. He grabbed his belt, which had become loose by 2 finger widths, and said indignantly, "The treasury has not filled up, yet I have already slimmed down. Being a wise ruler is a terrible bargain." Before General Huo departed again, he submitted a military report. "Troops along the southwestern frontier have recently crossed the boundary repeatedly to test our defenses. It does not look as though they are merely crossing over to steal cattle and sheep." Father remembered those spear shafts in the northern camp that broke at the slightest bend, and no longer dared dismiss trouble on the border as a minor matter. He immediately ordered General Huo to go south and take command of the naval forces, while sending a new shipment of weapons and equipment to the frontier. As for Father and me, we decided we could not continue working this hard. In the imperial garden, he opened a painted scroll of Zhongnan. Pointing at the pavilions half hidden in mist and rain, he asked, "Do you want to go?" "Yes, I do too." let us make an imperial tour of the south. I remembered the more than a month it had taken me to travel from Jiangnan to the capital. My back began aching just from the thought. I do not want to ride in a carriage. If we go by boat, the rivers do not connect. We stared at the map and sighed for half the day. At last I picked up a red brush and drew a line straight from the capital to Jiangnan. Then dig a river. Father immediately became energetic. Foolish rulers throughout history have always loved grand construction projects that waste money and exhaust the people. The river must be wide. The dragon boat must have 3 levels. The top level for music, the middle for banquets, and the bottom for sleeping quarters. Add a bathing room at the stern. Put 4 stoves in the kitchen so we can change dishes along the way. The more we talked, the more excited we became. Father truly had several years of imperial experience. In the end, he added, every 100 along the river, build a traveling palace. It need not be large. A hot spring will be enough. I humbly asked, how large is not large? 300 rooms should do. My tiny mind was deeply shaken. So being emperor could be this extravagant. I was determined to earn the title of foolish ruler too. Unfortunately, when our canal proposal reached court, the remonstrating officials nearly threw themselves against the pillars in protest. Chief Censor Chen Shenxing was the fiercest of them all. From the capital to Jiangnan is more than 1,000 li. The treasury has only just begun to recover, and now your majesty wants to conscript laborers and build traveling palaces. Have you forgotten how the previous dynasty destroyed itself? Father's expression darkened on the throne. I want to dig 1 river, and you immediately curse me with the fall of the empire? I receive my salary from the throne, so I must speak frankly. If this river is dug solely for your majesty's pleasure, then it is nothing but exhausting the people and wasting the nation's wealth. Drag him out and execute him. Your majesty, you cannot. In an instant, a whole swath of officials in the hall dropped to their knees. To be fair, I admired Censor Chen's courage, but he was standing in the way of my dragon boat, which made him extremely irritating. I leaned close to father and whispered a plan. I heard his only son is extremely handsome. His elderly mother is still quite elegant too. Why don't we bring both of them into the palace to enjoy themselves? The anger on father's face stopped mid-expression. He stared at me for a long time, then silently shifted farther away on the throne. You mean I should marry his mother and keep his son for you? I had originally meant to give both beauties, the older and the younger, to father. I had not expected him to care for me so much that he would voluntarily give me the young one. I was moved on the spot. Father, once you become Chen Shenxing's stepfather, he naturally will not dare scold you anymore. Father fell completely silent. The Xiao ancestors had once taken the throne through rebellion. Yet compared with my ideas, even their rebellion suddenly seemed strangely upright and honorable. I had clearly outdone my ancestors. My head was filled with schemes even more twisted than theirs. The court officials below us also fell silent. The hall became so quiet that everyone could clearly hear Censor Chen grinding his teeth. In the end, father still did not execute Chen Shenxing. After court, he summoned all 6 ministers responsible for educating us into the imperial study. Grand Tutor Shu drew a disciplinary ruler from his sleeve and placed it neatly on the imperial desk. Her Highness is intelligent, but she has no reverence for human life or the moral order. If your majesty continues indulging her, regret will come too late. Father picked up the ruler and lightly tapped his own palm. How many strikes would be reasonable? Grand Tutor Shu considered for a moment. The fear I speak of cannot be taught merely through beating. Father immediately put the ruler back down. I could not bear to hit her anyway. The ministers discussed the problem in the imperial study until midnight, and finally came up with a solution. Since the princess would no longer listen to the advice of elderly ministers, they suggested choosing a young companion of the same generation, someone of upright character, to enter the palace and study beside me. Chen Shenxing's only son, Chen Yanji, was exceptionally talented and had been carefully educated by his father from childhood. If he remained by my side, perhaps he could help me understand that Chief Censor Chen's blunt remonstrations were not deliberate acts of rebellion against the imperial family. Grand Tutor Shu valued his character. Prime Minister Pei valued his learning. The Minister of War liked that his father dared to scold the emperor to his face, and figured the son must have some backbone too. Father listened and thought for a long time. So even her study companion has to be someone tough enough to survive being around her? None of the 6 ministers denied it. The next day, father told me about the arrangement. I only clearly heard the first half. Bring Censor Chen's son into the palace. I immediately perked up. I was a noble princess, yet there was not even one beauty by my side. If word got out, it would seriously damage my reputation as a future foolish ruler. Any truly foolish ruler should have beauties on both sides and 3,000 favorites at her disposal. Father corrected me. He is being invited into the palace. Same thing. It is not the same thing. That very day, Chen Shenxing submitted a memorial. On the grounds that his only son was physically delicate and might not be able to serve attentively in the palace, he begged father to choose another study companion. I folded the memorial shut. Delicate is even better. He will not be able to run fast. Trying to dodge me? Fine. I would invite him personally. Chen Yanji was studying at the Imperial Academy. An instructor was lecturing on Mencius, and dozens of students sat properly inside the hall. The young man beside the window wore a peacock blue robe. Sunlight filtered through the bamboo blinds and fell across his shoulder, illuminating the open page before him. He heard the commotion and turned. His reputation as the capital's most handsome young gentleman was clearly well-deserved. His brows and eyes were refined, his nose straight and elegant. While the students around him were still hurriedly rising to bow, he had already set down his brush, stood and saluted me. I, Chen Yanji, greet Princess Zhaoning. I walked around him once and looked him over. Using him to threaten Censor Chen would certainly be more effective than simply chopping off his father's head. Pack your things. Come into the palace with me, Chen Yanji asked. Has your highness come on his majesty's orders to invite me to serve as your study companion? I raised my chin. Something like that. If your father keeps opposing the canal, do not expect to go home again. A collective gasp sounded through the lecture hall. Chen Yanji calmly closed his book and told his page to pack up the brushes and ink. Then he followed me outside. Only when we reached the bamboo grove did he gesture for the attendants on both sides to fall back a few steps. Your Highness, there is something I wish to make clear first. Say it. Your Highness is still young. You may not yet be able to distinguish between admiring someone, appreciating their beauty, and truly wanting them for yourself. I immediately objected. Of course, I can distinguish them. You are beautiful. I want you to give me several children. Someone behind the bamboo grove coughed violently. The tips of Chen Yanji's ears turned red, but his expression remained solemn. Perhaps your highness merely likes my appearance. Marriage is a lifelong matter. You cannot pressure the elders of both families over a momentary impulse. Who wants to marry you? I clearly came here today to take you hostage. Chen Yanji apparently decided I was only being stubborn. His tone softened further. I am willing to enter the palace as your study companion. I am also willing to wait until your highness grows older. If at that time, your highness still feels the same as you do today, I will give you an answer. I grew more and more confused. In the end, I simply grabbed his wrist and dragged him away. Chen Yanji allowed me to pull him all the way out of the Imperial Academy. By then, this romantic piece of gossip had already spread throughout the Imperial Academy. Princess Zhaoning had fallen for the Chen family's young master at first sight. To seize the beauty she desired, she had used the canal dispute to force Censor Chen to hand over his only son. One student hiding behind a door sighed emotionally. Brother Chen defies power to protect his father, sacrificing himself to feed the tiger. Another voice choked with feeling. If Brother Chen returns alive, he will surely become a model for our generation. I listened in bewilderment as I stepped onto the carriage. Chen Yanji raised a hand to shield my head from the frame. Be careful not to bump yourself. Your Highness need not concern yourself with such rumors. Only after I had settled inside, did he board the carriage and sit opposite me. You are still young. It is understandable to act somewhat impulsively. You have not yet reached the point of being beyond salvation. I suddenly understood why father had wanted to kill his father. Neither father nor son in the Chen family knew how to say anything pleasant. The first thing Chen Yanji did after becoming my study companion was teach me how to like someone properly. I was not allowed to detain people by force. I was not allowed to threaten them with their relatives. And I was definitely not allowed to shout about beating or killing people at the slightest provocation. In 3 sentences, he banned every method I knew. I sprawled over my study table and flipped through a storybook. Then how am I supposed to control your father? Your Highness is joking again. I am not joking. Chen Yanji thought for a moment, then pushed a copy of Discourses on the Gentleman, left by Grand Tutor Shu, toward me. Your Highness should copy this essay first today. Naturally, I refused. I have never had anything to do with this gentleman. Wouldn't it be strange to copy his essay out of nowhere? The moment Chen Yanji left Changle Palace, I ordered Xiao Fuzi to go to the Chen residence and bring someone back. When Chen Yanji heard that I had taken his grandmother into the palace, he lost his composure for the first time. He hurried across the threshold only to find old Madame Chen perfectly safe on a cushioned couch, eating lotus root starch cakes scented with osmanthus. A brazier of silver frost charcoal warmed her feet. An imperial physician was treating her long-standing leg ailment. The old lady smiled and waved at him. Yanji, Her Highness said she was bringing me into the palace to enjoy good fortune. She even gave me the western side hall to live in. The bedding here is softer than at home, and the pastries are better too. After confirming that his grandmother was unharmed, Chen Yanji finally turned to me. Your Highness, what is the meaning of this? A hostage is more valuable if she lives longer. Old Madame Chen took my hand and patted it. This child has a sharp tongue and a soft heart. She clearly pitied an old woman like me and deliberately brought me into the palace to recuperate. Chen Yanji was silent for a long time, perhaps revising his understanding of me yet again. I reminded him, do not think too much. I really did this to threaten your father. I understand. He tucked the blanket more securely over his grandmother's knees. Your Highness simply does not want others to know you are kind-hearted. I was utterly speechless. In fury, I picked up the remaining half-plate of osmanthus cakes and carried them away. When father learned that I had truly brought old Madame Chen into the palace, he became so frightened that for several days he hid in the military camp to conduct inspections and refused to return until after dark. The camp hosted the imperial entourage for 3 days in a row. General Huo assumed Qiling's armies might attack the capital that very night and shouted himself hoarse during training. Such a timid father truly made me worry. As for Chen Shenxing, when he learned that both his elderly mother and only sons were being kept in the palace, he submitted 3 memorials in succession. The first 2 bitterly condemned the imperial family for abusing its power. The third finally changed tone. If the court truly intends to dig a canal, it should at least send people skilled in hydraulic works to survey the water conditions first. It cannot rush into construction based on a plan drawn up for amusement. Father was displeased. We are already holding his family here. How does he still dare make demands? I was displeased too. I felt that keeping hostages for so many days had achieved absolutely nothing. The father and son of the Chen family were equally difficult. Only the old lady was pleasant. Every day she reminded the kitchen to put a little extra sugar into my desserts. Several days later, Chen Yanji had to return to the Imperial Academy for a weekly examination. I decided to escort him personally, so that all those students could see clearly that his life was still in my hands. The instant we entered the lecture hall, everyone's eyes darted back and forth between us. At last, a student close to the Chen family could no longer restrain himself and stood up. Your Highness is an imperial princess. If you covet beauty, that is one thing. But for the sake of a dragon boat, you wish to dig a canal thousands of li long. Do you know how many common people will be buried along the route? I had been worrying that father's interference was ruining every opportunity for me to destroy my reputation. Hearing this, I was delighted. Bring me the map. The instructor ordered a map of Great Yan hung in the center of the hall. I took a red brush and drew south from the capital region. My very first stroke curved toward Luanzhou. Someone asked, why does your Highness detour west? The sesame flatbread in Luanzhou is crispest right out of the oven. In less than half a day, it loses its fragrance. Only by water can I eat it while it is still hot. The instructor's beard trembled twice as my red brush moved. I bent the route southwest and marked Quuzhou. Someone immediately objected. Quuzhou suffers frequent droughts. It is not prosperous, nor does it have a harbor suitable for large ships. Why would your Highness take a longer route through there? Because the salted duck is good. The lecture hall fell dead silent. I continued drawing toward Jiangnan, casually circling every prefecture famous for lotus roots, water caltrops, sweet tangerines, yellow wine, and other delicacies. By the time I put down the brush, half the map of Great Yan had turned into a shopping list for the imperial kitchen. The student who had challenged me flushed red. Your Highness would use the waterways of the realm merely to satisfy your appetite. This is truly wait. Chen Yanji stepped in front of the map and took the red brush from my hand. He carefully examined the twisted route I had drawn, then asked the instructor to bring out the hydrological records of the various prefectures. He spread volume after volume across the long table and compared them. Most of the prefectures your Highness circled already have old channels left from the previous dynasty that can be reused. He pointed first at Luanzhou. From the capital region to Luanzhou, ships can use the Jishui River. South of Luanzhou, the route can connect with the Mohe River. Several sections are silted up, but most can be made navigable by dredging. There is no need to dig an entirely new river. His red brush continued south and stopped at Quuzhou. Turning from Quuzhou into the Lanjiang River makes the route somewhat longer, but it avoids 2 large, rocky mountains. The detour may actually save the cost of cutting through them. Students who specialized in water engineering crowded around the long table. Someone measured the map for a long time. If the hydrological records are accurate, these old channels really can be connected. The remaining sections would still require a field survey of the water conditions. Chen Yanji pointed toward the southern frontier. Once the waterway is opened, northern grain and goods can travel south by boat, while Jiangnan tea and silk can reach the capital directly. If war breaks out on the border, troops from the capital region can travel by water as reinforcements, with provisions and weapons transported on the same ships. It would be much faster than going overland. Another student pointed at Quozhou. The Lanjiang carries abundant water. If a diversion dam is built here, water can be channeled into Quozhou's dry fields. Once barren farmland becomes fertile, Quozhou will be known for more than salted duck. The student who had challenged me earlier stepped closer to the map too. If docks and markets are built in the prefectures along the river, merchants will naturally gather there. Luanzhou can sell flatbread, Quozhou can sell salted duck, and every other place has specialties of its own. The court need not impose harsher taxes. The taxes generated by trade alone would bring in another stream of revenue. Everyone around the map became more excited the longer they talked. Several times I opened my mouth to tell them I truly had never considered any of those things. Every time, a new burst of discussion drowned me out. Finally, Chen Yanji redrew my crooked red line into a clear route and handed the brush back to me. He bowed solemnly. Your Highness used regional specialties to trace a water route. It looks casual, but in truth it links the livelihood of the people, commerce and military affairs along a single line. My understanding was too limited. I mistakenly believed Your Highness wished to dig the canal only for pleasure. I understand. Chen Yanji smiled at me. Your Highness does not like taking credit. Every student in the lecture hall bowed toward me in unison. Your Highness is far-sighted and wise. That very day, the map from the Imperial Academy was carried into the Imperial study. Father stared at the red line I had drawn for an entire afternoon. At dusk, he summoned Chen Yanji and several senior officials from the Ministries of Works and Revenue. Can this river truly be dug? Chen Yanji replied, Your Majesty, we still need to send people along the route to survey the water and terrain. If the prefectural hydrological records are accurate, most of the old channels can indeed be reused. Can it truly transport troops? Once the waterway is connected, yes. Can it truly make money? The Minister of Revenue stepped forward faster than anyone else. Yes. Father asked one final question. Then can my 3-level dragon boat sail all the way to Jiangnan? An elderly waterworks official from the Ministry of Works glanced at the blueprint of that absurdly wide ship and answered cautiously. As long as the floodgates along the route are rebuilt to the required width, it can. Father slapped the table. Then the canal is worth digging. He dragged me behind a screen. For the first time, there was something almost like awe in his eyes. Daughter, have you secretly been studying statecraft behind my back? No. I truly only wanted to eat hot flatbread. Then what is this river route? I must simply have chosen good places to buy flatbread. Father accepted that explanation. The next day, when the canal was discussed again, Chen Shenxing no longer opposed it outright. He and several veteran hydraulic officials from the Ministry of Works stayed awake all night comparing maps. They listed the waterways, terrain, construction requirements, and expenses along the entire route. The canal can be built, Chen Shenxing said before the throne. But I have 3 requests. Father had become considerably more polite towards the censor he had once wanted to behead. Speak, Minister Chen. No new tax may be imposed for the canal. Local people may not be forcibly conscripted as laborers, and all accounts must be sent to the censorate every month for audit and verification. If the court pursues speed alone, then even with old waterways available for reuse, ordinary families will still be ruined. I did not understand. If no one is forced to work, who will dig the river? The court will pay wages and recruit laborers, Chen Yanji answered from where he stood beside me. What if they become lazy after taking the money? Divide the waterway into sections and inspect the work according to progress. Those who work faster and better receive additional pay. I asked another question. What if there is not enough money? The Minister of Revenue reported the amount of silver confiscated in the office selling case and the ghost soldier payroll case. At last, he gritted his teeth. If we spend carefully, it is enough to begin construction. Father clearly hated the thought of spending the silver that had only just arrived in his hands. He shifted left on the throne, then right. At the head of the civil officials, Grand Tutor Shu silently mouthed the familiar 4-character maxim at him. Teach by example. Father had no choice but to sit up straight. Then we will follow Minister Chen's proposal. If I want to teach my daughter to obtain wealth by proper means, I cannot scrape this money out of the people's cooking pots." The assembled ministers shouted, "Long live your majesty!" The court then dispatched survey teams along the route. They measured water levels and terrain, inspected old canals, and questioned local river workers about floods over the years. The survey took half a year from beginning to end, and the proposed route was revised several times. When the final route was fixed, a full 60% of it matched the red line I had drawn casually on the academy map. That was more than enough for the court officials to conveniently forget the remaining 40% and praise me to the heavens. Soon, someone dug through the old statutes of Great Yan and pointed out that no ancestral law prohibited a woman from inheriting the throne. They petitioned father to name me crown princess. There was not much opposition. Whenever an elderly minister objected that a woman should not inherit the throne, the 6 ministers responsible for educating us would immediately scold him into silence. From then on, there was one fewer voice opposing my appointment. The day father officially named me heir, he was even happier than he had been at his own enthronement. He shoved the golden investiture tablet into my hands. "The throne I promised you is finally within reach." I weighed the tablet in my hands. "Can you give me the throne now? I am not dead yet. You could abdicate. Dream on." Father tapped my forehead with one finger. "I am working on your behalf, and you already want to enjoy the benefits before me?" I felt that father truly had changed. In the past, he would never have refused an opportunity to enjoy himself, much less voluntarily taken on more work. Now he summoned the Ministry of Works every day to ask about the canal. Whenever he encountered a hydraulic map he could not understand, he kept the old waterworks officials behind and made them explain from the most basic concepts. Before, any memorial longer than 3 pages gave him a headache. Now an elderly waterworks official could explain something to him 3 times, try to excuse himself, and still be pressed back into his chair to explain it again. Father also began asking Chen Shenxing's opinion seriously. He no longer opened every disagreement by ordering guards to drag the censor outside. Chen Shenxing's courage grew accordingly. In the past, whenever he entered the palace, he would first leave final instructions with his family. Now the most he brought was an extra memorial. Once father became so frustrated by his objections that he grabbed an inkstone from the imperial desk. Chen Shenxing did not even flinch. He merely reminded him, "Your Majesty, teach by example." Father gripped the inkstone, glared at him for a long time, and finally put it back down. That night, he replaced the inkstone with a disciplinary ruler and came straight to settle accounts with me. "This is all your fault. I cannot even hit my ministers anymore," I helpfully suggested. "You can hold their families hostage." The ruler finally smacked my palm with a crisp sound. "Xiao Lingyi, study properly." By the time I was 16, construction had reached its final section. Chen Yanji had also gone from being my study companion to serving as an official of the Crown Princess's Eastern Palace. He handled everything thoroughly. Whenever I said something outrageous, he could promptly turn it into a more respectable explanation. His only flaw was that he attracted far too much attention. That autumn, we traveled to inspect the Dongping section of the canal. Lu Ji, the Minister of Work's sycophantic nephew, was among the officials accompanying us. Relying on the fact that his uncle oversaw the river laborers, he grew arrogant after drinking several cups at the banquet and stopped Chen Yanji to mock him. Young Master Chen left the Imperial Academy and moved into the Eastern Palace. "Sure enough, that road is much faster than 10 years of hard study." Then he added, "That official robe of yours, you earned it with your face, didn't you?" The surrounding conversation died instantly. Chen Yanji had just set down his wine cup. Before he could speak, I lifted the plate of crab from the table and dumped it over Luji's head, crab and broth alike. "Since when do outsiders get to bully someone from my Eastern Palace?" With soup running down his face, Luji sobered by half. "Your Highness, I was only joking. You publicly humiliated an official of the Eastern Palace. Go receive 20 strokes yourself. If there is a next time, I will have you sent into the Inner Palace permanently." One cut, and he would be castrated. The color drained completely from Luji's face. He apologized repeatedly and stumbled away. Chen Yanji took a handkerchief from his sleeve, held my wrist and wiped the splashed broth from the back of my hand. He asked, "Your Highness, who did you just say I belong to?" "A hostage." "I heard very clearly that I am someone from your Highness's Eastern Palace." "You heard wrong. My hearing has always been excellent. Your hearing isn't merely excellent. You're even better at selectively hearing the part that matters to you." I pulled my hand back, stole his handkerchief as well, and turned away. The handkerchief was later washed clean, but I never returned it. I had originally intended to keep it as collateral. Somehow, It ended up hidden at the very bottom of my dressing chest. Half a month later, the dragon boat that had taken 3 years to build was officially launched for trial sailing. The ship had 3 levels, with carved beams and painted pillars. The top deck could host banquets. The middle deck was for music. The lower deck had sleeping chambers and bathing rooms. At my insistence, the kitchen also had 4 stoves. Father and I stood at the bow, so excited that neither of us had slept the previous night. Then the dragon boat reached the first floodgate at Dongping. Only half the bow had entered when a tremendous crash sounded on both sides. The entire ship became wedged in the gate. It could move neither forward nor backward. The impact threw Father and me against the railing. A pot of freshly cooked duck also overturned and spread across the deck. Father's first instinct was to rescue the gilded dragon head that had been knocked crooked. Mine was to fish a duck leg out of the broth. Only after each of us had secured the important item did we remember to ask why the ship was stuck. An official from the Ministry of Works hurried over. The dragon boat is too wide. Ordinary cargo vessels pass through without any trouble. I stepped across the duck broth covering the deck. How wide is this gate supposed to be according to the plans? The official bowed his head. 5 zhang. And how wide is the gate in front of us? No one dared answer. Chen Yanji ordered measuring ropes brought over. The narrowest section was not even 4.5 zhang wide. Father immediately sent sailors diving below the surface. Before long, they brought up pieces of broken brick and poorly compacted rubble. Above the waterline, the floodgate walls had been built smooth and neat. Under the water, they were packed with rubble and shoddy material. If our dragon boat had not been so broad and sat so deep in the water, an ordinary cargo ship would never have discovered it in time. When the next flood season arrived, an entire section of the dam might have collapsed. Father stared at water seeping through the cracks in the wall. He said only one word: investigate. Chen Shenxing led the censorate in sealing the storehouses all along the route. They compared stone quantities, labor rosters, and allocated funds item by item. The Dongping section was soon found to have cut nearly half the required stone, while also padding the labor rolls with large numbers of non-existent river workers. Luji's wounds from his 20 strokes had not even healed when the censors pulled a profit-sharing ledger from beneath his bed. The book recorded far more than money stolen from canal construction. Years earlier, there had been the office-selling corruption case in the Ministry of Personnel. Then there were the Liu family's military supply contracts for the northern camp. Now there were officials along the river approving fraudulent waterworks. Every trail pointed toward Minister of Works Liu Min. Through relatives and former students, Liu Min had planted people across all 3 ministries. Every time the court released funds, his network scraped off a layer. The office-selling case had cut off his income from the Ministry of Personnel. The ghost soldier case had cut off his income from the Ministry of War. So he had reached into the canal project. Liu Min was escorted back to the capital. This time, Father did not shout for immediate executions. He ordered the 3 judicial offices to conduct a joint trial and publicly read every charge and piece of evidence before the court. Those who deserved death were executed according to law. Those who deserved exile were exiled according to law. All their property was confiscated. The damaged dams and embankments along the river were repaired using the assets seized from the officials involved. I was rather disappointed. No extermination of all 9 clans? Father tapped the disciplinary ruler against the imperial desk. Grand Tutor Su once said that punishing innocent relatives, along with the guilty, is not the behavior of an enlightened ruler. Then you can be the enlightened ruler, and I can be the foolish ruler. There is no contradiction. If you like exterminating 9 clans so much, copy the Xiao family genealogy 3 times tonight. I immediately changed my tone. Actually, handling matters according to the law is excellent. The case uprooted one of the deepest networks of corruption in the court. The recovered silver not only paid for repairing the Dongping Dam, but also left a considerable surplus. Once again, the entire court praised me. They claimed that I had insisted on using the largest, heaviest dragon boat for the trial voyage because I wanted to test whether the Grand Canal could carry large shipments of military grain. They claimed that I had personally stood on the ship because I was willing to put myself in danger. Even the 4 kitchen stoves were interpreted as an experiment to determine whether cooking fires during long voyages might ignite the wooden cabins. I sat on the dragon boat with a chunk missing from one corner and listened until my heart ached. Chen Yanji, however, said seriously, ordinary official boats would never have discovered the shoddy work hidden underwater. Your Highness's dragon boat truly did save the people living along the river. Could you save my pot of duck first? I have already ordered 2 more to be stewed. Fine. In the spring of the year I turned 17, the Grand Canal was officially opened along its entire route. Father named it the Chengning River, combining the Cheng from his name with the Ning from my title. I thought the name was terribly tacky and proposed changing it to the Flatbread and Salted Duck River. The entire Ministry of Rights dropped to its knees to stop me. On the day of the grand opening ceremony, 1,000 sails departed the capital docks and headed south. Northern grain and furs traveled by water toward Jiangnan. Southern tea, silk and fruit could reach the capital in little more than 10 days. Chuzhou diverted water from the Lanjiang for irrigation, and in the very first year its harvest increased significantly. Shops sprang up around river ports. Luanzhou sesame flatbread was even sold inside the imperial city. I had originally wanted nothing more than to ride a boat and eat. Now that I could eat those foods every day, I suddenly felt that digging the river had indeed been an excellent idea. Father's dragon boat had also been repaired. We chose an auspicious day and were preparing to depart on our southern tour when an 800 li express dispatch arrived from the frontier. 3 Chiling tribes had crossed the border and taken 2 fortified towns in succession. 2 smaller western kingdoms also began increasing troops along the frontier. They apparently believed Great Yan had exhausted itself digging the canal and wanted to take advantage of the opportunity. General Huo requested reinforcements and provisions. The court session began early in the morning and continued until late afternoon. The army was already well trained. Grain and supplies were ready. The difficulty lay elsewhere. Heavy rains along the southern frontier had caused landslides that destroyed 2 sections of the official road. If the army followed the old overland route, reinforcements would need at least a month to arrive. Chen Yanji opened a map and pointed at the newly completed Chengning River. By water, we can travel directly to the mouth of the Lanjiang. After transferring to lighter boats, it will take only another 2 days to reach General Huo's camp. The Minister of Revenue looked troubled. Civilian vessels are scattered everywhere. Requisitioning enough of them at short notice may be too slow, Chen Yanji asked. Is there not already a fleet sitting at the docks? Father and I turned toward the window at the same time. There sat our southern tour fleet, the dragon boat, the music boats, the kitchen boats, and the sleeping vessels that were supposed to accompany us. Father clutched his chest. Daughter, those are our boats. The beds can be removed to store bows and arrows. The stage can be dismantled to hold grain. The bathing rooms are just right for the wounded soldiers. My heart hurt too. Win quickly. Do not delay our trip to Quozhou for salted duck next year. With tears in his eyes, Father issued the order. Within 3 days, every beaded curtain and brocade canopy on the dragon boat had been removed. The carved cabins were packed with military grain. Reinforcements boarded the southern tour fleet and requisitioned merchant ships, then traveled downstream with the current. Granaries had already been built at the river ports, so the fleet did not need to stop along the way to gather supplies. A journey that previously required at least a month took only 12 days. The Chiling forces were besieging the 3rd fortified town when banners of Great Yan suddenly appeared across the river. Reinforcements poured ashore from the mouth of the Lanjiang. General Huo led troops to meet the enemy from the front, while another force circled behind and cut off the enemy's supply route. The war did not even last until winter. When the victory report reached the capital, Father happened to be in the imperial study, discussing with the Ministry of Works how to reinstall several new beds on the dragon boat. The messenger charged all the way into the hall, dropped to his knees, and shouted, "The 3 Chiling tribes have retreated 100 li, and sent envoys to request surrender. The 2 southwestern kingdoms have withdrawn their troops and are willing to resume annual tribute." The bed design in Father's hand fell to the floor. He was so excited that his legs trembled. I immediately asked, "Was the boat damaged?" "Your Highness, the dragon boat is sturdy. It was not damaged in the slightest." Father and I both released the breath we had been holding. News of the victory spread through the capital, and the people celebrated in the streets. In the court diary, the historians wrote that His Majesty and the Crown Princess had recognized the hidden danger long ago, reorganized the army, repaired the waterways, accumulated provisions, and planned for years before securing the frontier in a single campaign. Father and I pushed the credit back and forth for half a day. Neither of us was willing to accept such wisdom. At last, Father picked up his brush and wrote 4 characters on the copy of the court diary, meaning, "purely by coincidence." I solemnly stamped my own seal beside it. After reading this, the historian turned around and added another sentence. "The emperor and his heir achieved great merit yet refused to claim credit." Now we could explain even less. Below the star-picking terrace, festive lanterns stretched in a long band across the city. In the distance, nightboats on the Chungning River lined up to enter the capital. Father leaned against the railing and suddenly said, "No one ever taught me how to be a father. The late emperor never taught me how to be an emperor either." He looked toward the river. "I always thought that since the realm belonged to me, there was nothing wrong with taking from it for my own enjoyment. Then you came. Watching you behave outrageously made me realize that was not right." I turned to him. "Father, that sounds suspiciously like you are insulting me." "I am insulting you." He pulled the disciplinary ruler from his sleeve. I turned and ran. Father chased after me. "Did you skip Grand Tutor Sue's strategy lesson again today? I am almost grown. Why are you still controlling me?" I asked Prime Minister Pei. "His son is 30 and still gets beaten. You are only 17. It is far too early for you to escape." Ever since Father started asking the senior ministers for advice about raising children, he and they had discovered endless things to discuss. After court, several elderly officials often stayed behind instead of going home, just to talk about whose child had caused trouble this time. Father once helped Grand Tutor Shu choose a teacher for his great-grandson. Chen Shenxing helped Father draft rules for the Eastern Palace. Prime Minister Pei even used his own daughter as an example when advising him. You cannot always be too strict with children. Sometimes you must listen to what they actually want. Chen Shenxing had complaints of his own. Ever since Chen Yanja entered the palace, the number of days his son returned home had grown fewer and fewer. Father comforted him. Children grow up. Sooner or later, they have to be married off. Chen Shenxing immediately pulled a memorial from his sleeve. That day, the two of them argued for about an hour over the single character meaning marry off. When they finally finished arguing, they casually settled a new system for opening cross-border trade along the western frontier. Many major affairs of Great Yan were decided in exactly this way, while a group of fathers sat together complaining about their children. When I was 19, Father held another child-rearing conference. This time, the topic was how to choose a prince consort for his useless daughter. The Ministry of Rights produced a list of 20 young gentlemen from prominent families. Father rejected one because he was not handsome enough. He rejected another because the man's father talked too much. He rejected two more because their families spent money too freely, fearing they would encourage me to become even more extravagant. Chen Shenxing held his tongue for half the day. Finally, he tucked his ceremonial tablet into his robes and said, "Your Majesty, what is there left to choose? My son has been kept in the palace by Her Highness for 6 years. Who in the capital still dares discuss marriage with him?" Father suddenly understood. "Minister Chen, are you willing? Would it matter if I were unwilling?" "No." "Then why does Your Majesty ask?" Father immediately ended the meeting and went straight to the Eastern Palace to ask my opinion. I thought Chen Yanji was extremely suitable. He was handsome, good-tempered, and familiar with government affairs. Most importantly, no matter how foolish the thing I wanted to do, he could somehow find a benefit in it for the country and the people. With him beside me, even becoming a foolish ruler would be difficult. I went to find Chen Yanji. He was sitting in the study hall, organizing the memorials I needed to read the next day. I said, "Father told me to choose a prince consort." Chen Yanji calmly turned a page. "I've heard about it." I took the old clean handkerchief from my sleeve and placed it on top of his memorial. "I choose you." Only then did Chen Yanji pick it up. Recognizing the handkerchief from years earlier, he carefully tucked it into his sleeve. Then he stood and bowed to me. His manners were as proper as ever, only the tips of his ears had turned bright red. I remembered the first day we met and decided to make everything perfectly clear. "When I first went to the Imperial Academy, I truly intended to use you to threaten your father. I understand. I truly do. Your Highness is simply too shy to admit it. All these years, you have refused to admit that you fell in love with me at first sight." I endured it for a moment. Then I grabbed a memorial and tried to hit him with it. Chen Yanji raised a hand to block the memorial and caught my hand at the same time. "Your Highness, all these years I have remained beside you willingly. It was never because I feared death." Outside the window, crabapple blossoms had just opened. A breeze passed the lattice, casting flower shadows over our joined hands. I asked, "Then why? Wait until our wedding day. I will tell you then." On our wedding night, I naturally asked him again. Chen Yanji answered with complete confidence. "Of course it is because your Highness fell in love with me at first sight long ago." I regretted not bringing the disciplinary ruler into the bridal chamber. In the second year after our wedding, Father abdicated and gave the throne to me. His official explanation was perfectly respectable. He said the heir was wise and capable, the realm was peaceful, and I was well suited to inherit the great succession. The true reason was that the dragon boat, which had once been converted into a military transport, had finally been refitted and redecorated to his satisfaction. He could hardly wait to spend half a year in Jiangnan. All the ministers knelt and begged him to reconsider. Father was always quick to heed advice. He reconsidered for 3 days. On the 4th, he shoved the imperial seal into my hands, took 2 cartloads of storybooks and 8 cooks, and boarded the dragon boat. By the time the dragon boat reached Luanzhou, I was attending my first grand court session after ascending the throne. The civil and military officials had stood in the hall from before dawn until well into the morning, only to take turns reporting a few routine matters of no urgency. My back hurt from sitting. Chen Yanji's legs hurt from standing. The ministers, meanwhile, had wasted an entire morning that could have been spent doing actual work. So I immediately proposed, from now on officials can attend court on alternating days, half come on odd-numbered days and half on even-numbered days. It will save space and tea. No one in the hall answered. The office selling incident 6 years earlier had clearly left everyone psychologically scarred. Chen Yanji, standing at the side of the hall in the court robes of the prince consort, stepped forward. Her Majesty means to reduce routine court sessions when there are no important matters to report. The 6 ministries and local officials can take turns on duty, while urgent matters can be summoned at any time. In that way, he continued, officials will not waste time at ceremonial court sessions and can spend an additional half-day handling government affairs. Prime Minister Pei reacted fastest. On the very first day of the reign, Your Majesty has already cut empty formalities and emphasized practical administration. Truly a pragmatic act. The others immediately began praising the proposal as well. I looked toward Chen Yanji. Across a hall full of ceremonial hats, he secretly winked at me. I suddenly felt that choosing this prince consort had been an excellent decision. After court, attendants carried in a stack of memorials half as tall as a person. I was preparing to slip out through a side door, when someone outside lifted the beaded curtain with a disciplinary ruler. Father stood there covered in travel dust. I jumped. Were you not on your southern tour? The boat had barely reached Luanzhou when I heard that on your first day on the throne, you already wanted officials to attend court only every other day. I had no choice but to travel through the night to come back. Father, Chen Yanji said it would improve efficiencies. Father stuffed the disciplinary ruler into Chen Yanji's hand. I cannot teach her anymore. From now on you are responsible. Chen Yanji accepted it solemnly. I obey. I retreated 2 steps. Holding the ruler, he walked toward me. Then he passed directly beside me and stopped the attendant who was carrying the memorials. Her Majesty is tired today. Take the memorials to the study hall. I will review half of them for her. The attendant accepted the order and withdrew. Father frowned. I told you to teach her, not do her work for her. Chen Yanji answered calmly, husband and wife should be of one heart and share each other's burdens. That too is teaching by example. Father opened his mouth, then closed it. Perhaps he had never expected that the principles he had spent so many years learning would eventually all be used by his son-in-law to protect his daughter. Chen Yanji tucked the ruler into his sleeve and asked whether I wanted to eat the salted duck that had just arrived from Guozhou. I agreed happily. Father stood where he was and thought for a moment. Then he followed us. Later, the history books praised Father for restoring Great Yan to prosperity. They praised me for ushering in a flourishing age. They even recorded, in particular detail, the romantic tale of how Chen Yanji and I fell in love at first sight and remained devoted to each other for life. Father and I did not particularly agree with the first 2 claims. As for the last one, I spent my entire life explaining that it was not true. In the end, no one believed me, but it did not matter. Whether Chen Yanji believed me was not important either. What mattered was that he was willing to review half my memorials for me. That was the truly important thing.